The first sequence this video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 276 Betrayal and Loyalty. Li Dingding glanced at the list and said, Wei Jiangao, please follow me to another tent. I have something to ask you. This Wei Jiangao was snatched from another combat team by Ren Xiaosu and his team. He has the lowest sense of belonging to the entire combat team. In the military tent where Ren Xiaosu and his team were, more than a dozen soldiers were on guard with guns in hand. When Li Dingding spoke, he said that he was just asking simple questions, but in fact, everyone was imprisoned here, and these more than 10 soldiers might be nano warriors. Li Qingshan whispered, Xiaosu, will someone betray us? I don't know, Ren Xiaosu shook his head calmly. Although he didn't know what Li Dingding was going to investigate, everyone supported each other along the way, and he was not sure if anyone would betray him. Wei Jiangao was taken to another tent, where tables and chairs had already been set up. Li Dingding asked, has there been any abnormality in your team? Wei Jiangao shook his head, no, sir. Let me remind you, Li Dingding said with a smile, Wolf Pack, Nano Warriors, Li Qingshan, Ren Xiaosu. At this time, something interesting happened. Li Dingding originally just used those irrelevant words to test him, but when he said the word Wolf Pack, Wei Jiangao's pupils suddenly contracted. When he mentioned Nano Warriors and Li Qingshan, his pupils began to return to normal, but when he mentioned Ren Xiaosu, Wei Jiangao's pupils contracted again. Pupil contraction is usually related to light. When there is strong light, the pupil will contract because only a small channel is needed for light to pass through. But pupil contraction is also related to emotions. It will shrink when you are nervous and expand when you are excited. An expansion is due to death. Just like Li Shenhan said, there are too many secrets in the human body that are controlled by the subconscious, but this subconscious is not controlled by humans themselves. Li Dingding smiled, changed to a comfortable sitting position and said to Wei Jiangao, how about this, I'll change the way of chatting. Tell me all the abnormalities in your combat team, and I will reward you 100,000 yuan, plus the identity of a resident of the barrier, and even arrange a job for you, so that you will have no worries about food and clothing for the rest of your life. Wei Jiangao pursed his lips and said nothing. How could he know if what Li Dingding said was true? At this time, Li Dingding asked someone to bring a bag of things, 100,000 in cash, and I have already prepared a resident identity card for you, take a look. Wei Jiangao was stunned for a moment. This is serious. Even the identity card has been prepared. The other party must be very powerful. At this time, Li Dingding suddenly pulled the bag back from Wei Jiangao's hand. You are really lucky. You are the first to be interrogated, so you can seize this opportunity. If you tell the truth, the people behind you will not be so lucky. But if you don't say it, there will always be someone willing to say it. At that time, the money will not be yours, and you will face the disaster of imprisonment. Li Dingding prepared both carrots and sticks. Wei Jiangao whispered, I heard that Ren Xiaosu secretly left the post many times. When he went north to the 313th position, he always left at night and came back in the morning. Wang Yuqi and others knew Ren Xiaosu for a long time. They escaped from the 109th barrier. Chen Wudi is Ren Xiaosu's apprentice. Chen Wudi next door suddenly sighed, Master, we were sold out. Yet, Ren Xiaosu said that this was within his expectations. Do it, Chen Wudi asked quietly. Wait a little longer. At this moment, Li Dingding had a big smile on his face. It was too easy to break through this group of refugees. Money and the identity of the barrier were his weapons that were invincible. With this breakthrough, he was not afraid that others would not say anything. After letting Wei Jiangao leave, Li Dingding called in a new interrogator again, and this time he got more information. When we were at the sentry post, wolves would bring food. The night before the two officers disappeared, I saw Ren Xiaosu secretly leave the sentry post from the window. Before the 5 officers of the Shenji battalion in the private army died, Ren Xiaosu always left the camp. Before the Qing family launched the attack last night, Ren Xiaosu also left the high ground. Each of these items pointed the finger at Ren Xiaosu, the commander of the Yangshan battalion. Li Dingding did not need any evidence. He was not a judge and did not need to rely on evidence to judge anyone. The people next to Ren Xiaosu and Chen Wudi were called away one by one. Li Dingbing looked at Li Qingxiang in front of him. Others have said it, you should say it too. If you say it, you will get money. Li Qingxiang smiled apologetically. There is actually money to be gotten, sir. I like money the most. Li Dingbing smiled even more. Well, then tell me. But I don't know anything. There is nothing abnormal in our team. Don't listen to their nonsense, Li Qingxiang said aggrievedly. Don't refuse a toast and then drink a forfeit, Li Dingbing sneered. Do you think I lack your confession? I think you want to spend the rest of your life in a dungeon. Li Qingxiang took a deep breath and said seriously, it seems not bad. There is also someone to provide meals, Li Dingbing applauded. Finally I met a man. Not bad, not bad. You may not know what fate is waiting for you. Take him back and bring the 8 students with him. Ren Xiaosu was smiling from beginning to end, and Chen Wudi would whisper something to him from time to time, but Chen Wudi was not so happy, because he thought they had all been companions for so long. Li Qingxiang said nothing after returning to the tent, and Ren Xiaosu did not say much to him, but just smiled at him. After the 8 students came back, Wang Yuqi stood in the tent and sneered at the other comrades. It's better to raise a dog than you, a bunch of inhuman things. Okay, sit down, Ren Xiaosu said with a smile. In the end, he was not particularly disappointed. Jiang Wu's students were indeed as strong-willed as they looked. Jiang Wu's efforts for them were not in vain. Only Ren Xiaosu and Chen Wudi were left without interrogation. Li Dingbing seemed to have deliberately put them at the end. Li Dingbing was very clear about where the problem was. Suddenly, Li Dingbing pulled open the curtain of the tent and walked in. He looked at Ren Xiaosu and Chen Wudi and smiled. You two are the only ones left. Do you have anything to say? Wait a little longer, Ren Xiaosu said. Wait for what? Li Dingbing was stunned. As soon as he finished speaking, there seemed to be a sharp and piercing sound flying from the sky, and the ground shook with a rumble. That was the sound of artillery fire. In this early morning, the war escalated again. The Qing family is back. In an instant, Ren Xiaosu rushed towards Li Dingbing. I've been waiting for you. If he had taken action earlier, the movement here would definitely attract the 313th position soldiers of the brigade, so Ren Xiaosu had to wait for an opportunity when no one would notice this place, that is, the Qing family's comeback attack. At this moment, the 313th position was busy with its own affairs, so who would have the time to pay attention to them? Die? Ren Xiaosu roared. The outer armor wrapped around his whole body in an instant, and Ren Xiaosu actually grabbed Li Dingbing's neck with one hand, pressing the other person to the ground in midair. Li Dingbing's blood vessels all over his body burst out with silver light. He had been prepared for Ren Xiaosu for a long time, because he guessed that Ren Xiaosu was a transcendent. But when the two sides fought, Li Dingbing despairingly discovered that the gap between Ren Xiaosu and him seemed to be at the level of crushing. There will be another chapter added in the evening. Chapter 277 Destroy the City. Li Dingbing came prepared. Unlike Lin Qi, who is a test subject, he had the most nanorbits in the entire Li family, and the synchronization rate was as high as 94%. Although there are many people with more than 80% synchronization, it is rare to have such a close to 100%. In addition, Li Dingbing also brought 30 elite nano-warriors, which were even higher than the average level of the Shenji camp. But when Ren Xiaosu jumped in front of him, Li Dingbing suddenly found that he couldn't even dodge in time. It was not that he was too slow, but that the opponent was too fast. Moreover, the appearance of the outer armor was too shocking. Li Dingbing knew that it was made up of nanorbits, but he was surprised at how many nanorbits it took to form such a solid armor? Exclamation mark. He couldn't figure out where the nanorbits went before, but now he figured it out. But how many nano-warriors would have to be killed? Could it be that all the nano-warriors were killed by Ren Xiaosu from beginning to end? Sure enough, too many coincidences were the answer. But what shocked him the most was the time it took Ren Xiaosu to complete the outer armor protection. It was so fast that it only took a moment. The Li family knew best that a high synchronization rate means the time efficiency of your control of the nanororbit. The lower your synchronization rate, the longer the nanororbit will delay in operating after receiving the command. But what about Ren Xiaosu in front of him? The opponent's outer armor was formed too quickly, and Li Dingbing asked himself that he could never do it. But he already had a synchronization rate of 94%. If he couldn't do it, how high would Ren Xiaosu's synchronization rate be? Exclamation mark. There was no time to think about it. The cold front palm of Ren Xiaosu's outer armor stuck to Li Dingding's neck. Li Dingding felt that his whole body was lifted up into the air, and then the arm suddenly clenched and pushed him to the solid ground. In an instant, Li Dingding felt a strange sense of weightlessness wrapped around him. He tried to break free from the arm, but found that the nanorbot he was proud of could only wail unwillingly in front of the opponent's power. All struggles were useless. It was too fast, too powerful. How could this be a height that humans could reach? With a loud bang, Li Dingding's head, neck, and back all collided with the ground. He could even feel his bones shattering inch by inch, and the nanorobot tissue in his body that was originally used to reinforce muscles and bones instantly fell apart. Li Dingding lay on his back, his eyes empty, and he could only see Ren Xiaosu's steel visor, cold and resolute. All this happened in a flash, and the surrounding nanosoldiers responsible for vigilance couldn't even react. They didn't expect that with so many nanosoldiers surrounding them, the other party would dare to kill people. Moreover, they had never even seen that cold outer armor. Li taught them how to make nanorobots play an auxiliary role in the body, but never told them that nanorobots could be used in this way. The nano-warriors raised their guns and started shooting at Ren Xiaosu. Wang Yuqi suddenly shouted to the other students in a low voice, "Get down." As if they had discussed it long ago, Wang Yuqi and Li Qingzhang all lay on the ground at the same time. The bullets hit Ren Xiaosu's outer armor, making only a ding-dong sound, but not causing any effective damage to Ren Xiaosu. When the nano-warriors were shooting, suddenly a black golden hoop swept across. Chen Wudi shouted, "Whoever hurts my master will die." The front part of the golden hoop suddenly became larger and longer, like a hammer, hitting the waist of the three nano-warriors. When the stick was in the air, it rubbed against the space and vibrated, making a terrifying buzzing sound. According to previous tests, nano-warriors are definitely enough to deal with ordinary extraordinary people, but Li Dingding and others did not expect that the two extraordinary people in this tent were not ordinary at all. Li Qingzhang lay on the ground with his hands protecting his head, muttering, "I knew it. I knew it." For a moment, the nano-warriors' attacks were a bit chaotic. They had too little experience fighting extraordinary people, and they couldn't judge who was a bigger threat between Chen Wudi and Ren Xiaosu. Moreover, the tent was not big, and this environment was more suitable for Ren Xiaosu and Chen Wudi to perform. A nano-warrior turned the muzzle of the gun towards Chen Wudi, but after firing half a shuttle of bullets, Chen Wudi was not hurt at all. Chen Wudi's body was constantly flashing with golden light. A bullet hit his shoulder, and a golden armor phantom appeared on his shoulder, and then disappeared. When the other nano-warriors focused their firepower on him, the bullets connected into one piece, and the golden armor phantom on Chen Wudi's body was also fully presented. That was the strongest and toughest armor in the world. Even the 100,000 thunderbolts of heaven could not destroy it. Chen Wudi said calmly, "Are you done fighting? It's my turn." As he spoke, Chen Wudi suddenly disappeared in front of the nano-warriors. Only Ren Xiaosu's voice remained in the tent, "You left." "I right." Ren Xiaosu rushed over with the nano-warriors. His movements were not fancy at all. He crashed into the nano-warriors like a flying mountain. The two nano-warriors who were hit had no power to fight back. They were knocked out at once, and even a big hole was broken in the tent. If it was normal, I'm afraid someone would have noticed the abnormality here, but the Qing family's comeback created a great opportunity for Ren Xiaosu. The nano-warrior fell to the ground outside and could no longer get up. It seemed that all the bones in his body were broken. If the broken bones were few, then the nanorobots in his body could quickly complete the connection and fill the cracks. But he had too many broken bones. The artillery fire outside was even more intense than when the Qing family came before. The strong wind caused by the bombs made the broken tent rustle. Ren Xiaosu stood at the entrance of the cave and looked back. In front of him were the remaining 20 or so nano-warriors, and behind him was the noisy night sky. The nano-warriors knew that guns were no longer useful for this outer armor. They abandoned their guns and drew their nano-sabers from their waists. Ren Xiaosu raised his hand and grasped the black knife in the void. He laughed, and the lines on the outer armor seemed to be laughing. "What you have, I have too. I have more than you put together. Start the timer, 30 seconds. "What 30 seconds? The nano-warriors became more and more uneasy, and they didn't even dare to take the initiative to attack. Ren Xiaosu said, "The last 30 seconds of your life." The next moment he silently chanted in his heart, "Destroy the city." The pupils hidden behind the outer armor turned red. Horizontal ellipsis. I haven't even finished writing this paragraph yet. There's still the 5th chapter tonight. I'll eat and then write. Friends who go to bed early don't have to wait, and I'm also asking for monthly votes. Book title: The Great Wizard Has His Way. Author: Wang Xiaoxi of the East China Sea. Synopsis: Fan Wujiang, a freshman at the medical university, stepped into the world of wizards because of his father's bizarre death. A wizard girl who calls herself a bounty catcher, a ferocious exotic parasite, a flying luminous jellyfish, a cute wizard beast that can repair corpses. The headquarters of the Wizards Union is like a large stock exchange, with a call machine and an independent network platform. This is an extraordinary wizard world that subverts imagination and keeps pace with the times. After Fan Wujiang's 3 views were shattered, he decided to risk everything to try his luck and embark on the road to becoming a wizard. Chapter 278: I Have No Choice. When the power begins to surge like the magma under the crater, all the creatures that fall into the crater will be melted by the red flames. Human beings' desire for power has never disappeared, otherwise the Li family would not have created something like nanorobots for military use. Ren Xiaosu felt the surging flames in his body. He took a step forward with his knife. The nano-warriors watched him pass by with stunned expressions. They wanted to raise their nano-sabers to chop at Ren Xiaosu, but the speed at this time made them feel like they were being slowed down. The black knife cut across the chest of a nanorobot, and the knife he blocked in front of his chest was cut into a neat and smooth section, and then the body fell apart. A nano-warrior was unable to dodge and was hit by Ren Xiaosu and his outer armor. He felt his chest cavity collapsing, and the blood had nowhere to go due to being squeezed, so it could only accumulate at the broken blood vessels in his body. More than a dozen nano-warriors surrounded Ren Xiaosu. A nano-knife slashed at his back, but it could only cut a crack in the outer armor, and could not even hurt Ren Xiaosu's skin. The crack in the outer armor rolled outward, looking hideous and terrifying. At this moment, the nano-warriors suddenly realized that this is how nano-robots should be used. When Ren Xiaosu's strong physical fitness was combined with the outer armor, it was like a real siege machine, rushing around and making people daunted. A nano-warrior began to be afraid. He didn't know how to defeat the heavy and powerful machine in front of him, and his heart was filled with a sense of powerlessness. He picked up the gun on the ground, roared and began to shoot wildly into the tent, as if this could eliminate the fear in his heart. But the next second, the roar stopped abruptly, and the black knife in Ren Xiaosu's hand pierced his chest, and blood quickly filled his alveoli, forming blood foam inside. Ren Xiaosu slowly pulled out the black knife. "Woody, how are you doing?" Chen Woody carried the golden hoop on his shoulder. "Done." Only then did Ren Xiaosu remove the outer armor and put the black knife into the palace. He looked at the mess next to him. The tent had not collapsed yet. But the situation didn't seem good. Ren Xiaosu looked at the comrades lying on the ground. Some of them were shot dead when the nano-warriors just fired, and some were still crying. But Ren Xiaosu didn't care about them. Instead, he looked at Li Qingzheng, Wang Yuqi and others. "Are you injured?" Ren Xiaosu frowned and found that there was blood on Wang Yuqi's legs. Several students had blood on them, but Li Qingzheng was fine. Wang Yuqi's face was full of sweat. "I was shot in the leg. The bone may be broken." "Class leader, look at the others. They seem to be injured too." Ren Xiaosu counted and found that there were 5 injured students, and the injuries were not light. They needed to deal with the bullets left in their bodies first. "We can't stay here any longer," Ren Xiaosu said. "Let's escape while the battle is going on, grab a truck, and go back to the 108th fortress first." This crisis made Ren Xiaosu realize that someone had been able to connect many events together, and it would be more dangerous for him to continue staying in the Li family. Ren Xiaosu said to Chen Woody, "You carry the injured out, and you wait for me outside." Li Qingzheng consciously helped to carry the injured out, and after everyone else went out, Ren Xiaosu broke the necks of other comrades one by one. These people knew too much to keep. He took out all the pots, pans, shovels, hammers and other things in his storage space, leaving only gold and food, and then put all the nanorobots on the nano-warriors in it. After doing this, Ren Xiaosu walked out of the tent and carried the wounded outside with the others. The 313th position was in chaos. The Qing army's artillery fire was so fierce that no one paid attention to them. Even the other combat sequences passing by only thought they were wounded soldiers retreating from the front line. "There's a car over there." Ren Xiaosu whispered. "The driver is still in the car, grab the car." This place is very close to the entrance of the 313th position. As long as they grab the car, they can rush out immediately. In this chaos, no one will notice their whereabouts. However, at this moment, a group of strange soldiers ran in from outside the position. Ren Xiaosu felt strange in his heart. The movements of this group of soldiers were too neat, and there seemed to be no emotion in their eyes. This is a full-strength battalion, with 500 people. Ren Xiaosu lowered his head and tried to lead Chen Wudi and the others to pass by the team, but the officer at the front of the team suddenly called out to them, "Which combat sequence are you from?" The voice was mechanical and calm. Li Qingshan immediately went up to explain, "We are from the 7th Infantry Regiment. We were injured and retreated. We are preparing to go to the medical center." The officer glanced at Ren Xiaosu and the others and continued, "Take me to the position of the hero battalion." Ren Xiaosu suddenly clenched his fists. "These people are coming for him again?" Exclamation mark. "What should I do? If the other party is really 500 nano warriors as Ren Xiaosu guessed, then Ren Xiaosu and Chen Wudi will not be able to defeat them even if they are gods. Moreover, in this open area, it will be too conspicuous if they fight." Just as Ren Xiaosu was thinking about what to do, he heard Li Qingshan say with a smile, "Okay, I'll take you there." Ren Xiaosu was stunned for a moment, and then he saw Li Qingshan turn around and smile bitterly at him. "You should go to the medical center quickly and don't delay the treatment. I will take the officers to the hero camp and meet you there." Ren Xiaosu said in a daze, "You? What do you mean by me?" Li Qingshan smiled, "I can't wait to be happy." "Okay, you guys go." As he said that, Li Qingshan suddenly turned around and resolutely walked towards the high ground where the hero camp was located, without looking back. Real war and life are like this. There is no time to say anything heroic or sentimental. Accidents can happen at any time and take away the people you are familiar with and the familiar smiles. Ren Xiaosu resolutely turned around and walked towards the truck. No one is allowed to look back. Wang Yuqi struggled and said, "Squad leader." Ren Xiaosu lowered his voice and roared, "I said I'm not a good person. My beam of light has long been gone." Wang Yuqi and the others were speechless for a while, and they didn't even know what the beam of light Ren Xiaosu was talking about was. Only Chen Wudi understood. He remembered that in the afternoon, his master said, "If I had a choice, I would also like to be a person with light in my heart, but I have no choice. It's not that I don't want to choose, but life has never given me this option. I only see two options, one is life, and the other is death. This is the wasteland." 5 more monthly tickets. Chapter 279, Depreciation of Qing's Currency. 313th position was empty, so after Ren Xiaosu grabbed the car, he went all the way south to the 108th rampart without any obstacles. When they came in earlier, it took half an hour just to check their identities. Now all the soldiers have gone to the front line, except for the troops guarding the munitions and supplies, to prevent spies from taking advantage of the situation. However, the #1 spy chief of the Qing family on the front line was about to leave, and he didn't even have time to say hello to Tang Zhou. There was silence in the truck. Ren Xiaosu stepped on the accelerator all the way, and Chen Wudi and Wang Yuqi didn't say anything else. On the way back to the 108th rampart, when passing the checkpoint, Ren Xiaosu was also sweating, fearing that he would be stopped. He directly showed his identity as a special investigation officer, but no one dared to stop him when the certificate was shown. Now the arrest of Ren Xiaosu from the hero battalion is still a secret, and Ren Xiaosu also realized this, otherwise Li Dingding would not have to hide his actions at all. What he had to do now was to rush back to the fortress before Li's wanted him, and then find a chance to take Yan Liwen and the others away. As for where to go, we could only wait and see. Now on the way north to Yang's 88th fortress, there was also constant fighting. Yang's armored brigade had just torn a crack from Qingsheng Mountain tonight, but before it could stabilize the situation, it was intercepted from the rear by a team of mysterious nano warriors, and the battle became even more stalemate. So Ren Xiaosu wanted to go north, whether to Qing or Yang, it was a bit impossible. But if it really didn't work, Ren Xiaosu would take everyone to hide in the wilderness. Although wild beasts and poisonous insects were rampant in the southwest, he now had thorn vines, and maybe he could exchange some other seeds in the future, so that they would not be so stressed out living in the wilderness. It only took Ren Xiaosu 4 hours to get back to the wall of the fortress. If the mountain road was not too difficult to walk, he could have been even faster. Ren Xiaosu showed his ID at the gate of the fortress, and he kept observing the expressions of the defenders to prevent anything abnormal from happening. However, the soldiers guarding the city said nothing and let him go politely, with no abnormal expressions. Ren Xiaosu was slightly relieved at this time. Li probably didn't expect that the person they wanted to catch would dare to return to the fortress at this time. But now they have to be more cautious. If Li finds out, they will really have no way to escape. After entering the fortress, Ren Xiaosu stopped the car. Change back to your clothes, let's take a rest. I'll think about how to find Li Yuan and the others. Chen Wudi got out of the car with a calm face. Ugh. What's wrong, Wudi? Ren Xiaosu asked in surprise. Master, I'm fine. Ugh. Chen Wudi claimed to be the reincarnation of the Monkey King, and he was not afraid of anything. Now he was afraid of his own master driving. Bullets and the like are physical attacks, and the master driving is a magic attack, which is different. Ren Xiaosu said calmly, Wudi, you can't do this. You're carsick when you're just getting to the front line. Look, everyone else is fine. Looking back, he saw a student almost passed out from vomiting. Ren Xiaosu stopped talking and asked Gong Dian, what's my driving skill level now? Gong Dian replied, no driving skills detected. Ren Xiaosu, okay. Their plan was to find Yan Liwen first, but Ren Xiaosu had no idea after thinking for a long time. After all, it was such a big barrier. Everyone rushed to the front line in a hurry and didn't leave any contact information. So the most reliable way to solve this problem was to find Hu Shuo. But how to find Hu Shuo? Ren Xiaosu asked for directions on the street and asked the Special Investigation Division directly. As a result, no one he asked knew the way, as if the Special Investigation Division was very secretive. At this time, Chen Wudi said, Master, although the bullets in Wang Yuqi's body have been taken out, we don't know how to fix broken bones. If we delay any longer, they may not be able to walk like normal people in this life. Ren Xiaosu frowned. Wang Yuqi and the others were all shot. Although Chen Wudi had helped them take out the bullets and applied black medicine on the way, if they were sent to the hospital, people would still be able to see the gunshot wounds at a glance. If the defenders in the 108 fortresses were attracted by then, it would be even more troublesome. Ren Xiaosu pondered for a moment. Since they couldn't find Hu Shuo, they could only let Hu Shuo come to find him. Suddenly, Ren Xiaosu heard someone in a nearby grain and oil store arguing, we don't accept money from the Qing and Yang families. Now the money from the Qing and Yang families is just like paper. If you don't have money issued by the Li Bank, don't come to buy things. An older sister knelt in the grain store and cried, my family hasn't eaten for 2 days. Can you at least sell me some rice? This is the money my family used to invest. When the war is over, it will definitely appreciate in value. At this time, Ren Xiaosu watched all this silently, but didn't say anything. After the outbreak of the war, all food would be supplied to the army first, which led to a shortage of food in the 108th fortress, which was closest to the front line. Ren Xiaosu suddenly realized that even the people in the fortress had a hard time during the war. Suddenly, the palace said, mission, help 10 fortress residents who suffered from the war. Haha, Ren Xiaosu didn't even care about this mission. He was still fleeing, so why would he help others? However, Ren Xiaosu was stunned for a moment. He turned around and said to Chen Wudi, let's go. I have a solution. As he said that, he got in the car, stepped on the accelerator, and drove the truck around the barrier until he found a gold shop and stopped. Ren Xiaosu entered the gold shop and asked, do you accept gold? The boss's eyes lit up. How much gold do you want to exchange? These days, there is a war. The most valuable thing is gold, and gold is constantly appreciating. In the past, it was sold for hundreds of yuan per gram in the barrier, but now the price of 1 gram is almost breaking 1,000. Don't worry about how much I exchange. Ren Xiaosu looked at the boss and said, I want to ask you, do you have Yang's currency here? Ah! The boss suddenly felt ecstatic. The gold shops and the barrier usually have some financial functions. For example, they used to help merchants exchange currencies between various consortiums. As long as the handling fee they charged was lower than that of Li's bank, there would be merchants willing to come to exchange. Unfortunately, now there is a war, and all the currencies of the Yang and Qing families are in their hands. Money is not as good as paper. Now the young man in front of him actually wanted to exchange Yang's currency at this critical moment. He must have gone crazy, right? Ren Xiaosu frowned and asked, "Do you want to exchange it?" "Exchange? Exchange? Why not?" The gold shop owner couldn't sell the Yang's currency in his hand. Now someone wanted to exchange it, so of course he had to exchange it. He didn't care whether Ren Xiaosu would lose money because of this. Aren't there enough people who were hurt by this war? This one is not a big deal. Chapter 280. Make money, make money, make money. What the gold shop owner didn't know was that Ren Xiaosu didn't care whether Yang's currency depreciated here or not, because the palace wanted officially issued currency, no matter whose. It can be said that the depreciated Yang's currency just met Ren Xiaosu's needs, and if he really went to Yang's territory in the future, the money he exchanged would be useful. After all, Yang's money didn't depreciate in Yang's territory, and it was Qing's and Li's money that depreciated there. Ren Xiaosu didn't expect that they would find the dividends brought to him by the war when they returned to the barrier. He didn't know how to thank Li's. In addition, it was a chaotic war, and he was just selling some gold. I'm afraid no one would care about him. This was a good opportunity to sell gold. No wonder some people always say that those who make money from war are rich. Ren Xiaosu deeply felt the meaning of this sentence. When war comes, many of the original orders will be broken. The boss smiled and said, "Little brother, how much gold do you have?" "I want as much as you have." He asked the boss, "How much Yang's currency do you have here?" "I will exchange as much as you have." "It's so generous." The boss lowered his voice and said, "I have 240,000 here. Now 1 gram of gold can be exchanged for 8,000 Yang's money. 240,000 is a little less." Ren Xiaosu has now become so arrogant that he looks down on 240,000 yuan. After all, the gold in his hand can't be exchanged for this money. It's only 30 grams. No, Ren Xiaosu always feels that he seems to have missed something very important. He suddenly remembered something and asked, "How much money do you have for the Qing family?" "I'll exchange it all." The boss was ecstatic. "Little brother, you are here to do good things. I really have to thank you. I still have 310,000 Qing's money." "Thank you coins from Liao Yizhong, +1. Guangdian said, "The task is completed by 1/10. Ren Xiaosu was shocked. Guangdian just said that he would help 10 residents of the fortress who suffered from the war. It turns out that the gold shop owner is also included. Thinking about it carefully, it seems to be true. After all, this guy has been holding back the money in his hands and has indeed suffered from insomnia for several days. Now, Ren Xiaosu knew how to complete this task. He was not making money from the war. Ren Xiaosu immediately convinced himself from the bottom of his heart that he was helping the residents of the fortress who suffered from the war. Ren Xiaosu knew that this was just making a specious argument, but how could he have a clear conscience? Don't ask. Ren Xiaosu did not go to other gold shops immediately, but returned to the military truck first. He pulled down the tarpaulin to cover the truck bed so that no one outside could see what was going on inside. Ren Xiaosu looked at Wang Yuqi and others and said, "What is going to happen next is absolutely confidential. You can't tell anyone, including your female classmates. Can Teacher Zhang Wu tell me?" Wang Yuqi asked. At this time, Wang Yuqi's injury had not healed yet. It was just that the black medicine stopped the pain after it was applied. Ren Xiaosu thought for a while and said, "Teacher Zhang Wu can tell me." Before, Ren Xiaosu thought of a way to treat Wang Yuqi and others' broken bones, which was to distribute nanorobots to them and let them control the nanorobots to straighten and connect the bones in their bodies. This is the best way at the moment, which is better than going to the hospital. These students did not betray Li Dingding during his interrogation, which is why Ren Xiaosu was willing to take them to escape. Chen Wudi has a sharp ear, so he can't be wrong. If it were in the past, Ren Xiaosu would definitely not want to expose the secret of the nanorobots, but now the situation has changed, and Ren Xiaosu is willing to let them know more. What's more, he now has too many nanorobots in his storage space, and he can't use them at all. I'm afraid that Li will be disgusted to death if he knows about this. Many soldiers on their side have not yet been assigned nanorobots, but here someone has robbed them of so many nanorobots, and can even unlock and match them one stop. However, to give the nanorobots to Wang Yuqi and others, it is necessary to pay a handling fee of 20,000 yuan to the palace, so Ren Xiaosu has to go to the gold shop as soon as possible, otherwise he can't afford the handling fee. Wang Yuqi and others looked at each other and said, "Don't worry, squad leader, we will never tell today's secrets even if we die." Stretch out your hands, Ren Xiaosu said. I'll give you some nanorbits. Wang Yuqi and others were stunned. Although they didn't know much about nanorbits, could this thing be given casually? Shouldn't there be some encryption program or something? But they looked at Ren Xiaosu's expression, as if this was nothing. But nanorbits are too precious. Wang Yuqi retracted his hand. Squad leader, you still need nanorbits. What will you do if the nanorbits are given to us? Ren Xiaosu was impatient. He grabbed Wang Yuqi's hand and said, why are you so slow? I have plenty of those things. Wang Yuqi and the others were stunned by these words. Why did their squad leader look so rich? To be honest, Ren Xiaosu roughly estimated the number of nanorbits in his storage space. Even if he gave a batch to each of the 8 people, he would probably still save a lot for Yan Liuan. Although Yan Liuan has already collected enough for his whole body, Yan Liuan is still young and has to grow taller in the future. This feeling is like a parent preparing new clothes for his children at home. You have to think long term. Therefore, when most children buy clothes, their parents will buy them looser ones so that they can wear them for a longer time. The palace said, a total of 8 people, 160,000 yuan in handling fees. Ren Xiaosu felt a pain in his heart, and he said in his mind, use Qing's money, not Yang's money. After all, he might go to Yang's in the future, so now he has to use Qing's money first and save Yang's money. The nanorbit spread through the hands held by Ren Xiaosu and Wang Yuqi. At this time, Wang Yuqi and his team had already begun to try to control the nanorbits. Ren Xiaosu asked, are you able to command them? Wang Yuqi shook his head. There is a delay of about half a second each time a command is issued, which feels very awkward. Well, your synchronization and coordination rate is a bit low, Ren Xiaosu nodded, but you should exercise more in the future and practice your reaction speed, and it should improve. As long as it is improved to within 0.2 seconds, I feel that you will not have much problem dealing with ordinary extraordinary people. Well, Wang Yuqi nodded, and he began to use the nanorbits to set his bones, but the process was very painful because they had to put the broken bones back in place. However, Ren Xiaosu discovered that these students did not cry out even when it hurt while their bones were being adjusted. Chapter 281, Me to Shuo again. Ren Xiaosu returned to the driver's seat and continued to look for the next gold shop. Of course, he was not doing this just for money, he had a deeper plan. This time, Ren Xiaosu was very skilled when he entered the gold shop, and he directly asked to exchange the devalued banknotes. The stocks of these gold shops were not much, and on average, one shop could allow Ren Xiaosu to exchange about 500,000 cash, including Yang Qing's too. However, he could exchange cash, get thank you coins, and help the residents of the fortress who suffered from the war. This was simply a good thing to kill 3 birds with 1 stone, so why not? When he finished visiting the 10th house, the palace said, mission accomplished, and you will be rewarded with a basic level skill learning diagram. Ren Xiaosu was a little disappointed. He had been thinking of getting a perfect level diagram to use on Chen Wudi. After all, his disciple's extraordinary skills look very strong. Unfortunately, there was no point in using the basic level skill learning diagram on Chen Wudi. Apart from his extraordinary abilities, this disciple had no other outstanding abilities. At the moment of completing the mission, Ren Xiaosu counted the cash he now had, which was a huge amount of 5.41 million. The piles of money piled in the storage space made him feel a little dazzled, as if the money was glowing. How could he have dared to think that he would have so much money before? Come on, Wudi, let's go find a restaurant to eat, Ren Xiaosu said with great enthusiasm. Eat as much as you can, master will treat us. The rest of you who are not injured can go together. The injured brothers, bear with it for a while. We will bring you food after we finish eating. At this moment, it was not easy to find a restaurant. When they found a restaurant that sells stir-fried dishes, Ren Xiaosu went in and looked at the menu and said, except for this, and this, take everything else. Chen Wudi said worriedly, has the master's brain disease gotten worse? However, at this moment, the palace suddenly said, it is detected that the host has a lot of money. Do you want to unlock a higher level of storage space? Ren Xiaosu had a toothache. This palace was really taking advantage of every opportunity. But as the saying goes, money is used to buy things to enhance oneself. He has so much money and has no place to spend it now. How can money that cannot be spent be worthwhile as real portable space? Now his storage space is only 15 cubic meters, and sometimes it is not enough to carry supplies. Ren Xiaosu said, unlock. Wait. But he saw that most of the money in the storage space disappeared, and the space expanded rapidly. Ren Xiaosu said distressedly, how many levels did you unlock at once? He just wanted to say not to unlock so many, but it was too late. Ren Xiaosu even suspected that the palace was deliberately moving so fast, not giving him a chance to save money. The palace said, unlock 240 cubic meters, plus the original space, a total of 255 cubic meters. The total cost is 4.8 million. 16 cubic meters equals 320,000 yuan. 32 cubic meters equals 640,000 yuan. 64 cubic meters equals 1.28 million yuan. 128 cubic meters equals 2.56 million yuan. A total of 4 levels were unlocked, and Ren Xiaosu only had 610,000 cash left. At this time, the palace said, do you want to unlock the vacuum preservation function? The detachable vacuum preservation area will cost 200,000 yuan. Ren Xiaosu's face turned black at that time. Haha, unlock. Do you want to unlock the plant planting function? But unlock, unlock, unlock. Ren Xiaosu was angry. Why do you only care about money for everything? You have too many charging items, right? At this time, Ren Xiaosu found that he only had 10,000 yuan left. The plant planting function actually cost 400,000 yuan? Exclamation mark. What is it called going back to the pre-liberation era overnight? This is it. Chen Wudi looked at Ren Xiaosu sitting silently at the dining table, his face turning blue and red, and asked, Master, are you not feeling well? Ren Xiaosu glanced at Chen Wudi, turned around and shouted to the boss, Boss, I was joking when I ordered the dishes just now, don't mind, we just need a bowl of white rice each. Chen Wudi. Of course, Ren Xiaosu couldn't be so stingy, and finally ordered a few dishes. But halfway through the meal, the order department suddenly pushed open the door and came in. They were wearing order department uniforms and shouted as they entered, whose military truck is that outside? Someone reported that you exchanged a large amount of other consortium's banknotes and privately stored oxidized gold. Your gold must not have come from a legitimate source. Ren Xiaosu thought that he had finally waited for it. He raised his Special Investigation Department ID and said to the Order Department, come here. The Order Department was stunned at the time. How did they run into the plague out of the Special Investigation Department? Exclamation mark. The three people walked over in fear. Don't mind, it's all a misunderstanding. Ren Xiaosu said while eating, your Order Department is quite wide-ranging. Do you want to privately deduct my gold? The Order Department was startled. They came here to steal the gold. The gold shop owner said when he reported it that the boy must have a lot of gold on him. But they didn't expect to kick the iron plate of the Special Investigation Department. However, the people from the Order Department still smiled and explained, we are in charge of this, you misunderstood. Ren Xiaosu was unhappy and said, you don't have to worry about it in the future, our Special Investigation Department will take care of it. Your Special Investigation Department will take care of this. The people from the Order Department were confused. Yes, from now on, what your Order Department can't do, our Special Investigation Department will take care of it, and what your Order Department can do, our Special Investigation Department will take care of it even more. Ren Xiaosu said, go back and tell your boss and repeat my original words to him. The three staff members of the Order Department turned around and left. This was a big deal. The Special Investigation Department was going to seize power. As a result, half an hour later, the door of the hotel was pushed open again. Ren Xiaosu was amused when he saw the person who came in. It turned out to be nonsense. Hu Shuo sat opposite Ren Xiaosu with a gloomy face. He was so angry when he saw Ren Xiaosu's calm look. I just returned to the barrier, and I heard that my Special Investigation Department will take over the Order Department. Ren Xiaosu smiled and said, expand business, expand business. You want to find me, Hu Shuo said unhappily. What do you want to find me for? You still have the mood to eat in the barrier. Do you know that the man named Li Qingzhang has been captured by the secret force and is on the way back to the barrier? Ren Xiaosu was silent for a while after hearing this. When will we arrive at the barrier? Where will we be detained? What's the situation with the mysterious force? Li has gone crazy, Hu Shuo sighed. The mysterious force is most likely soldiers completely controlled by nanorbots, and their combat capabilities are extremely strong. As soon as the King Xiangshan front line sent the same group of mysterious troops into the battlefield, Yang's frontal troops were immediately frustrated. This group of soldiers are not afraid and are not afraid of death. Ren Xiaosu was stunned for a moment. Nanorobots actually have such a function. There will be another chapter added in the evening. Chapter 282 Explosion Rescue. At this time, Ren Xiaosu suddenly remembered that every time the palace flashed the nanorobbot, it would say clear the remote connection program. Perhaps the problem lies with the remote connection program? Those soldiers who wanted to become nano-warriors probably didn't expect that they would end up like this. No wonder Hu Shuo said that Li was crazy and was too cruel to his own soldiers. Hu Shuo glanced at Ren Xiaosu and said, "Your brother Yan Liwen and the others are now living in Bao in Hutuang, more than 10 kilometers away. Go find them and leave here." "You haven't answered my question yet," Ren Xiaosu said. "When will Li Qingshan be taken back to the 108 fortress, and where will he be held?" Hu Shuo seemed a little surprised. "You want to save him? Are you that kind of person?" Ren Xiaosu said seriously, "I'm really not a good person, so I have to think about it again, but I don't deny the possibility." "You won't have a chance on the way back," Hu Shuo looked at Ren Xiaosu and said, "but I know where he will be held for interrogation, but you'd better think about it. The guards there are extremely strict. I don't think you have any chance." "You don't have to worry about this for me," Ren Xiaosu said. "If I felt unsure, I would definitely not go and die myself. I'm not that kind of person. Just tell me when he will be taken back and where he will be held." In the basement of the garment factory. Hu Shuo did not take away Ren Xiaosu's Special Investigation Division certificate. Although Ren Xiaosu had caused him a lot of trouble, he intended to continue to provide some convenience for this little friend. Before leaving, Hu Shuo had someone send him a blueprint, which was the blueprint of the Li family's secret base under the garment factory. "Master, are we going to save the Wolf King?" Chen Wudi asked curiously. Ren Xiaosu didn't say anything, but just sat there in silence. After a while, he sighed and said, "Let's go find Yan Liwen and the others first." As he said that, Ren Xiaosu paid the bill and started the truck. Chen Wudi followed behind him. "Master, don't persuade me, let me think about it again." Ren Xiaosu frowned. He knew that saving Li Qingshan was not an easy task, and it was even very likely to cost his life. How could Ren Xiaosu do such a thing? Chen Wudi said, "No, Master, I just want to say that I'm not full." Ren Xiaosu, "It's okay, let's go to Bao in Hutuang and let Sister Xiaoyu cook something for you." Chen Wudi got into the car with a smile on his face. He sat in the passenger seat and paused before saying, "Master, you actually want to be a good person, right?" "I'm not that kind of person, don't mention it," Ren Xiaosu said unhappily. He stepped on the accelerator and Chen Wudi almost vomited out the lunch he had just eaten. As the car was driving, Ren Xiaosu suddenly said, "You said Li Qingshan hasn't betrayed us yet, otherwise the barrier should have started to arrest us now." Chen Wudi didn't know what his master was going to say. Ren Xiaosu said to himself, "Li Qingshan is also quite pitiful. He could have escaped, but suddenly some mysterious army showed up and helped us lead him away." Chen Wudi nodded. Ren Xiaosu became more and more annoyed. He suddenly turned the steering wheel, and the huge truck actually completed a beautiful tail drift on the barrier street. Wang Yuqi and the others were almost thrown out. The car turned around and rushed out the way it came, and no one knew where it would rush to. 5 trucks were coming from the 313th position in the north. These vehicles were as fast as the wind, and no one at the checkpoints on the road dared to stop them. Li Qingshan was sitting in the truck bed of the middle truck. The mysterious army didn't even put handcuffs on him, as if they were not afraid that he would try to escape. Li Qingshan looked at the officer opposite him and said with a smile, "Sir, where are we going?" "Rampart," the officer said expressionlessly. "I suggest you quickly tell me where Ren Xiaosu is, and anything unusual about him. Otherwise, you will regret not cooperating when you get to Rampart." Li Qingshan smiled flatteringly. "I really don't know anything. This Ren Xiaosu is such a jerk. He got into trouble and didn't even tell me, the team leader. If you let me leave, I will definitely scold him for you when I see him in the future." The officer still looked at Li Qingshan expressionlessly, but he didn't waste any words. Li Qingshan looked at the scenery outside the truck bed. The snow-capped mountains were beautiful and magnificent, and huge falcons were circling over the distant mountains, but he was not in the mood to appreciate it. The fortune teller said that I would meet a noble person this year, and then enter the barrier, rise to prominence, and become famous all over the world in the future, Li Qingzhang said with a wry smile. My father was so happy at that time that he even went to the market to buy some meat for me. I remember that he drank a little wine that night and said that his son was indeed a promising man. Li Qingzhang sighed. I didn't expect that I would enter the barrier because of this kind of thing. However, at this moment, a young officer diagonally opposite him suddenly laughed. Where's this fortune teller? Can I ask him to tell my fortune? Li Qingzhang was stunned for a moment. The fortune teller left the town a long time ago, and no one knows where he went. Oh, the young officer didn't seem particularly disappointed. I also want to see what my fate will be after revenge, so let's get to know each other again. My name is Li Shenton, a friend of Ren Xiaosu, and I'm nice to meet you. You. Li Qingzhang was a little at a loss. He didn't understand what had happened, nor did he know who this Li Shenton was. He just found that the officers around him seemed not to have heard what Li Shenton said, and they were still sitting upright. Li Shenton smiled happily and said, I was just joking with you just now. I really envy Ren Xiaosu for having a friend like you. Are you also envious of Ren Xiaosu for having a friend like me? These words confused Li Qingzhang. Is this young man called Li Shenton confident or narcissistic? What a mess. But Li Shenton said to himself, Ren Xiaosu now thinks that you will be locked up in the garment factory of 108 barriers. To be precise, it is the least strategic secret base under the garment factory. He is hesitating whether to go down to rescue you. What do you mean? Li Qingzhang was even more confused. Don't mess around. Aren't you his friend? Why do you want to trick him into going to a secret base? Because it's fun. Li Shenton smiled and said, I want to see how that friend will treat his friend. Behind that smile, it seems that there is a crazy and uneasy soul hidden, with nowhere to rely on, chaotic and irritable. But when those complicated factors come together, it suddenly calms down. If Ren Xiaosu was present, he would definitely understand that Hu Shuo deliberately revealed so much information to him, which was actually Li Shenton's idea. The army that captured Li Qingzhang was not the mysterious Nano army of the Li family at all, but the one controlled by Li Shenton. However, the main force was still unknown where to hide, and there were only 500 people here. It was a game, and Li Shenton decided to let Ren Xiaosu kick off the destruction of the Li family. However, at this moment, a shocking roar suddenly erupted from the vehicle in the front, as if some extremely explosive bomb was detonated. Then, Li Shenton's face changed. I was careless. He actually planned to rob the car halfway. He grabbed Li Qingzhang and jumped out of the car, but heard a roar from the wilderness. Old Li, I'm here to save you. When Hu Shuo was passing the information to Ren Xiaosu, he said that the armed forces escorting Li Qingzhang were extremely powerful, and it was unrealistic to rob the car halfway. He said this to lead Ren Xiaosu to the underground base, so that Ren Xiaosu would think that robbing halfway was impossible. But the more Ren Xiaosu thought about it, the more he felt there was a problem. There was a logical problem here. If he couldn't do anything on the road, how could he do anything when he got to a place with tighter defenses? And it was nonsense that even the blueprints of the base were prepared for him. Ren Xiaosu always felt that this old guy had no good intentions. So, after lunch, Ren Xiaosu suddenly drove out of the barrier again and rushed to the wilderness. After Li Shenton jumped out of the car, he rolled on the ground twice. He raised his head with a dusty face and looked at Ren Xiaosu, who was rushing towards him in an outer armor. Li Shenton looked very embarrassed, but for some reason, he laughed very happily. Interesting. Ha ha ha, so interesting. Thank you Zichen for becoming the new leader of this book. The fourth update, please give me a monthly ticket. Thank you all for your support of the monthly ticket. I think there should be more updates tomorrow. Chapter 283 almost got beaten. Ren Xiaosu finally came to rescue Li Qingzhang, but the rescue process was much easier than he imagined. In the plan, he would use the pre-buried bursting poker to destroy the front car, causing the formation of the entire convoy to be in chaos. Then Li and Chen Wudi relied on their strong individual strength to go in and force the robbery, and then used the bursting poker to quickly create chaos and escape from the battlefield, and finally led the enemy to the place where he had just planted thorn vines, and used the thorn vines to cut off the rear. This plan was not thorough, but it was the only way to deal with it in a hurry. However, the guest Nano warriors did not exist. But Li Shenton was seen instead. At this moment, Ren Xiaosu had already reacted. It turned out that the so-called secret base to rescue Li Qingzheng was just a trap set for him by Hu Shuo and Li Shenton. The troops that captured Li Qingzheng were not mysterious troops at all, but the combat brigade that Li Shenton had abducted before. Although he didn't know what Li Shenton's purpose was, Ren Xiaosu suddenly breathed a sigh of relief. This was better than facing 500 nano-warriors. But it didn't feel good to be set up. While Li Shenton was still standing, Ren Xiaosu suddenly exerted force with his feet. The heavy outer armor made cracks on the ground, and then he crossed a distance of more than 20 meters like a mountain and came to Li Shenton. Ren Xiaosu clenched his fist and smashed it hard at the smiling young man opposite. But at this moment, a little girl in the sky was falling rapidly, and she blocked Li Shenton before Ren Xiaosu could hit him. She raised her slender fist and collided with Ren Xiaosu's iron fist. The collision force made a loud noise, and in an instant, a huge dust was raised around. Ren Xiaosu had no choice but to retreat. Li Shenton's voice came from the dust, "PFFT, PFFT, I ate a mouthful of dirt." When the dust cleared, Li Shenton had already stood up, and smiled at Ren Xiaosu with a gray face. "Long time no see, friend. Is this how friends get along?" Ren Xiaosu frowned and asked. He glanced at Chen Wudi next to him, as if he wanted to beat this guy to death with Chen Wudi. Although Si Liren had just taken his punch, he had not yet had the intention to kill him, so it was not considered that he had used his full strength. The only problem was that Ren Xiaosu had seen many extraordinary people now, but the only one who could fly was this little girl, so he had no idea how strong this little girl was, so he could only join Chen Wudi to strangle her. The soldiers controlled by Li Shenton did not attack them, but stood there stupidly, waiting for Li Shenton's instructions. But Li Shenton laughed and said, "Do you really want to beat me up to vent your anger? You are quite good at fortune-telling, aren't you?" Li Qingzheng just got up from the ground at this time. He didn't have the good physical fitness like Li Shenton, and he almost broke his body after falling. Li Qingzheng saw Ren Xiaosu as if he saw a relative. "Xiaosu, beat him." Li Shenton smiled even more. "I think you may not have time to beat me." "What do you mean?" Ren Xiaosu had a bad premonition. The nano-warriors in Yang's army responsible for infiltration, decapitation, and rear destruction are about to arrive at the 108th barrier, or may have already arrived, and my army will start to attack the 108th barrier in an hour, Li Shenton said. "No matter which side starts first, the entire barrier will be plunged into war. Your friends are still in the barrier. I don't know if they can survive without your help. If I kill you directly, won't your troops stop?" Ren Xiaosu asked. "It seems that you don't understand hypnosis. Once the hypnotic command is formed in the subconscious, the recipient will also execute the command even if there is no caster," Li Shenton explained with a smile, "and even if I am not there, the Yang family will take action. I also made my plan based on their plan." Ren Xiaosu remained silent. He was calculating the time. Li Shenton asked, "Do you still want to fight with me now?" As soon as he finished speaking, Ren Xiaosu turned around and left decisively. "Wudi, Laoli, let's go." Ren Xiaosu must find Yan Limuan before the war breaks out on the other side of the barrier. Li Shenton looked at Ren Xiaosu's leaving figure, and only after Ren Xiaosu walked away did he let out a long sigh. "It's a close call. I almost got beaten." Si Liren floated beside Li Shenton. "Brother Shenton, won't your troops arrive in 2 hours? If I don't say that, we will really get beaten now, and we may not be able to beat him in Chen Wudi. We have to trick him to leave," Li Shenton said with a smile. Si Liren wrinkled his nose. "I can beat him." Li Shenton patted Si Liren's little head. "When the battle is the most dangerous, it is not about who has more power, who will win. Then what to look at?" Si Liren asked curiously. "Look at a person's will to survive, the anger of not willing to die, the desire to protect relatives, and the instinct accumulated in the face of a dangerous world, all give him strength," Li Shenton sighed. "Brother, you seem a little unhappy," Si Liren asked. "Well," Li Shenton looked at the direction where Ren Xiaosu and the others left and said, "At that time, I was hiding in the crowd and in the mental hospital, and I thought, if someone shouted to me, 'Li Shenton, I'm here to save you.'" Li Shenton said calmly, "That would be great." Si Liren blinked and said, "I can shout in the future." Li Shenton smiled and said, "You are a girl, you can't call yourself Laozi." "Then call me mother," Si Liren said seriously. but you are still young. In a courtyard of the fortress, blood flowed from the courtyard to the road. Someone in the courtyard just cried and called for help, but no one came to rescue him because the guards outside had been killed long ago. Hu Shuo stood quietly in the living room of the villa inside. He looked at the magnificent decorations in the house and seemed to be completely unaware that an injured old man was struggling to crawl to the side. He crawled a little slowly in the pool of blood, and the blood on the marble floor made the floor look a little slippery. But the old man did not give up, because there was a gun hidden under the sofa in front of him. Hu Shuo was delirious. What did my daughter do wrong? She just wanted to remarry. The old man crawling on the ground roared, "How do I know she is your daughter? Hu Shuo, you dare to kill me, the entire Li family will not tolerate you." At this time, the old man finally touched the pistol under the sofa. He pulled out the pistol with all his strength and pointed it at Hu Shuo, but when he pulled the trigger, he could only hear the sound of an empty chamber. There was no bullet in the gun. Hu Shuo looked at him and said, "Lees? The Lees will cease to exist soon." Hu Shuo waited for 1 day, and waited for 9 years. His daughter was paraded through the streets, and his grandson was sent to a mental hospital. That anger could not be filled by more than a dozen lives. He needed all the people in the Lees to go down and say sorry to his daughter. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelists. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 284, Breaking the Door. On the way back to the barrier, Wang Yuqi and his friends finally breathed a sigh of relief because the driver had been replaced by Li Qingzhen. In the past, no one thought Li Qingzhen was that important, until they were punished by Ren Xiaosu's crazy racing skills. Everyone began to miss Li Qingzhen. Thinking carefully, everyone felt that it was necessary to save Li Qingzhen. With Ren Xiaosu's fierce driving, the car might get into trouble at any time. Ren Xiaosu calculated the time and said to Li Qingzhen, "It will take about 40 minutes to go back to the barrier. It took this long to come here, and your driving skills are not as good as mine, so it will definitely be slower." Li Qingzhen turned his head and looked at Ren Xiaosu in a daze. He didn't know where Ren Xiaosu got the confidence to say such a thing. Ren Xiaosu continued, "Li Shantan said his troops will attack in an hour, and we should still be in time to return to the rampart by then." Li Qingzhen heard this and stepped on the accelerator again and asked, "Why don't you persuade that lunatic not to attack the rampart?" Ren Xiaosu was silent for a moment. Yang Xiaojin and he had mentioned Li Shantan's life experience after they escaped from the 109 rampart, so he knew very well why Li Shantan was targeting the Li family. He told Li Qingzhen about these things, and then Ren Xiaosu said, "If I could persuade him, I would have done it earlier, but no one can stop him. His will for revenge is too strong. And he lost his mother because of the Li family. Who has the qualifications to persuade him to let go of his hatred? Put yourself in their shoes. If it were me, the Li family would have been gone 8 generations ago." What Li Shantan wanted to do was not just simple revenge, but to drag the entire Li family into hell. Although Ren Xiaosu did not agree with Li Shantan's approach, and although he would not stand on the same side as Li Shantan, he understood Li Shantan's feelings. "But no matter what, we still have to beat him up if we have a chance," Ren Xiaosu added seriously. The car entered the rampart 50 minutes later. As Ren Xiaosu said, Li Qingzhen drove a little slower. After entering the rampart, it took some distance from the north gate to Bao Iwan Hutong, where Yan Liwen and his friends were. It looked like it might take more than 40 minutes to drive. Ren Xiaosu urged Li Qingzhen all the way, "Hurry up, it's too late." At this moment, Ren Xiaosu was really anxious. If they hadn't arrived at Bao Iwan Hutong when the rampart was in chaos, it would be difficult to find Yan Liwen and his friends at that time. Although he knew it was too late, Ren Xiaosu was unwilling to give up. However, when the truck was speeding on the streets of the ramparts, Ren Xiaosu counted the time and suddenly wondered, "No, it's been an hour, how come nothing happened?" Only then did Ren Xiaosu suddenly react, "Fuck, this grandson lied to me." If it was really as Li Shantan said, the will of the subject after hypnosis would not be disturbed by anything, then Li Shantan's combat brigade should have launched the attack at this time, but it didn't. "It seems the time is not as urgent as imagined," Ren Xiaosu said with a sigh of relief, "but we still have to take Li Yuan and the others away from here quickly." The 108th rampart has become a place of trouble, and we don't know when it will become purgatory. Everyone had just arrived at the 108th ramparts, so they didn't know the way. Fortunately, during lunch, a student went to the grocery store next door to buy a map of the ramparts. Ren Xiaosu was there to show the way, and Li Qingxiang drove without distraction. "We're here, this is it," Ren Xiaosu shouted. When the car stopped, he jumped out and headed for Bao Ibn Hutuang. He saw a plaque in a courtyard with a Ren character and a Yan character. Ren Xiaosu immediately understood that this was made by Yan Liuan to make it easier for him to find. Dang dang dang, Ren Xiaosu knocked on the door hurriedly. He shouted, "Open the door, it's me." But he heard someone in the yard running over to open the door. As soon as the door opened, Ren Xiaosu saw Yan Liuan inside. But before he could go in, Yan Liuan suddenly said calmly, "Who are you looking for?" Ren Xiaosu was not a fool. Yan Liuan could not have not recognized him. The other party must have said that something had happened. "There is an enemy." Ren Xiaosu asked, "Is there anyone at home?" "I'm looking for a friend named Zenfin." "You must have found the wrong person. There is no such person in my house." "He may be next door," Yan Liuan said. Ren Xiaosu asked if there was anyone at home because he wanted to know if the enemy was in the yard. Yan Liuan said no, the enemy was next door. Ren Xiaosu smiled and said, "Okay, I'll go ask next door." As he said that, he walked to the yard next door and knocked on the door. The door opened all of a sudden, as if the person who opened the door was guarding the door. When the door opened, Ren Xiaosu suddenly stretched out his hand through the crack of the door to grab the neck of the person who opened the door. When he exerted force on his hand, he heard a crisp sound. At this moment, the other party probably didn't expect that Ren Xiaosu would not leave any room for retreat, and his first move was so clean and neat. The sound of guns being loaded came from the yard. Ren Xiaosu immediately wrapped his whole body with external armor. In an instant, dense gunfire rang out in the yard, and the bullets smashed the wooden door of the yard into pieces. Ren Xiaosu rushed in under the gunfire. There were 3 people inside, each of them was a nano warrior. There was also a man and a woman tied up in the corner, probably the original owner of this house. But Ren Xiaosu rushed forward, and just a face-to-face encounter, he pushed a nano warrior against the wall, and even the wall was smashed. One of the nano warriors drew out his saber and slashed at Ren Xiaosu, while another nano warrior yelled into the communicator, "Support. Request support." They were not stupid. Seeing such a beast wrapped in full mechanical armor suddenly rushing in, the nano warriors knew that this was not a situation they could handle at all. The signal for help had been sent, but it was a little too late for someone to come and rescue them. Ren Xiaosu cut off the oncoming nano knife with a black knife, and then pierced the chest of the nano warrior in front of him. When he exerted force on his legs again, Ren Xiaosu even saved the action of drawing the knife, and rushed forward with the corpse on the knife, nailing the last nano warrior to the wall. Ren Xiaosu took off his outer armor and exhaled a breath of foul air. At this time, he turned around and saw that behind the broken courtyard wall, Yan Liuan and Sister Xiaoi were quietly watching him kill people. Just now, everyone was still surprised at what was going on with the armored man in front of them, but the next moment they found that it was Ren Xiaosu. To be honest, even Yan Liuan had never seen Ren Xiaosu like this. It was just that Ren Xiaosu's killing was done in one go, and the power he showed during the fight was too shocking. Ren Xiaosu said, "Stop watching, pack up, we have to leave Barrier 108 immediately." Chapter 285, Barrier Destroyed. "Brother, what happened?" Yan Liuan asked. During this period of time, they were in the barrier and did not have many channels to obtain news from the front line. The entire barrier was in a very closed state. The radio broadcast stopped and the newspapers did not mention the war. But Yan Liuan suddenly found that the people next door had changed. Usually, the host and hostess next door would go out to work at 7 o'clock in the morning, but today they did not, which aroused Yan Liuan's vigilance. It was not that he was too suspicious, but the environment they were in now had to pay attention to all abnormalities. But Ren Xiaosu had no time to explain now. The nano warriors had sent out a signal for help. The legendary mysterious army might arrive here soon. He waved to Yan Liuan, "No time to explain, get in the car." At this time, the truck was parked on the side of the road. No one in the yard said a word of nonsense, and they had already prepared their luggage, as if they expected to leave at any time. Ren Xiaosu jumped into the car and asked, Where's the garment factory? West, Wang Yuqi shouted. Then drive east. Li Qingxiang stepped on the accelerator, and the truck roared eastward. Usually, no one in the barrier would drive so fast, so when the truck passed by, many pedestrians couldn't help but look sideways. Someone whispered, "Are you in a hurry to reincarnate?" After that, he walked home as usual after get off work, thinking about whether to buy more rice in the evening. There were almost no rice grains in the porridge at home these 2 days. While in the car, Ren Xiaosu matched a bunch of nanorbits for Yan Liwen again. Wang Fugu asked with a big backpack, "Xiaosu, what's going on?" "There's going to be a fight in the barrier, we have to leave quickly," Ren Xiaosu said. "How have you been doing recently?" Fortunately, many families have run out of food, and they don't have much savings, so they can't afford it when the price of food goes up. "Our family still has plenty of money," Wang Fugu laughed happily. "Where are we going this time?" Among the refugees who entered the barrier, Wang Fugu and his friends are probably the most comfortable. They have money. I don't know why, but Wang Fugu feels that he is used to running around. In order to survive in this chaotic world, he can only flee again and again. But it will always be tiring to flee like this. Sometimes Wang Fugu wants to ask Ren Xiaosu, "Why don't we find a mountain to live in, so as not to get involved in the disturbance outside?" Sister Xiao first carefully looked at Ren Xiaosu, and then made sure that he was not injured before she felt relieved. "Have you ever encountered danger in the front line?" Chen Wudi said cheerfully, "Sister Xiao, my master is danger. Wherever we go, people there are very dangerous." Sister Xiao smiled, "As long as you are okay." In Sister Xiao's cognition, it's okay as long as Ren Xiaosu and his friends are okay. It doesn't matter to her whether other people are in trouble or not. This is the most simple logic of refugees, just take care of yourself. However, at this moment, a shocking explosion suddenly came from somewhere in the barrier, followed by a huge black smoke rising into the sky, as if there was a fire somewhere. Ren Xiaosu glanced outside the truck bed, wondering if it was done by the Yang family or Li Shantin's troops. Now he couldn't confirm who did it. The residents of the barrier on the street all stopped and looked. They hadn't realized that this was a disaster brought by the war. Most people probably thought that it was just a boiler or transformer that exploded. In the world of the barrier people, although it was a war now, the 108 barrier had not been affected by the war, only the price of food had risen. On weekdays, the radio did not report the frontline war situation, and the newspapers did not report the frontline war situation. The people of the barrier thought that the war would not spread to them. But then there was the sound of gunfire, and it was not until this moment that the people of the barrier panicked. Was the war coming? Before they could react, they saw a missile with a long tail flying towards the barrier in the southern sky. The slender missile flew quickly in the sky, all the way to the east. As it began to fall rapidly, a roar was heard again from the east of the rampart. That was the direction Ren Xiaosu and his team were going. Cracks began to appear on the rampart wall, and a large amount of gunpowder smoke rolled up into the sky. Someone was bombarding the rampart wall from the outside with artillery fire. It must be Li Shantin's troops. Ren Xiaosu didn't expect that Li Shantin was going to destroy the 108 ramparts together. Similar scenes were staged in many places. The walls on which the people of the ramparts depended for survival began to be attacked by hot weapons. Ren Xiaosu counted silently. The sound of artillery fire attacking the walls probably came from 3 different directions. The next moment, the wall on the east suddenly began to collapse, and huge pieces of the rampart fragments began to fall down. All the people of the ramparts on the street looked over there, with only horror and numbness in their eyes. This numbness was not because they didn't care about the wall, but when the stimulation was too great, their nerves could no longer withstand such stimulation and they didn't know how to react. Almost at the same time, everyone looked towards the broken wall. The people on the street were like petrified sculptures. Some people looked out through the windows of their houses, and the houses fell into deathly silence. The wall is the protective circle that the people of the wall rely on for survival. It is their innate sense of superiority and belief. Most of them were born in the wall. In their eyes, the world is surrounded by a wall. They live here, work here, marry and have children, and live out their lives here. Most of the people of the wall have never even thought about what would happen if the wall collapsed. When the wall collapsed, their inherent worldview and outlook on life also collapsed. Ren Xiaosu shouted on the truck, "Just drive to the east." The collapse of the wall is just convenient for us to escape. No wonder Li Shenton dared to attack the wall with only one combat brigade. He controls a missile force. However, the gap in the east has been opened, which also increased the step for Ren Xiaosu to blow up the gate of the wall. But when the vehicle drove east, Ren Xiaosu suddenly felt something was wrong, because the people in the east were fleeing in their direction. No, I feel like something is missing. Ren Xiaosu thought that even if the barrier collapsed, these people shouldn't have fled so far. But they were still far away from the east, and Ren Xiaosu couldn't see what was happening behind the crowd. East? What's in the east? Ren Xiaosu suddenly yelled at Li Qingzhen, turn around. Damn, I forgot about the experimental subjects. How could they be absent in such a big mess? Just as Ren Xiaosu expected, the experimental subjects had been lurking around the barrier for a long time, waiting for an opportunity to move, and now the human civil unrest is their best opportunity. Chapter 286 My reinforcements have arrived. Originally, Ren Xiaosu fled to the east because Li's mysterious nano troops were chasing him, and a gap had been made in the eastern wall. But when he fled here, he found something wrong. Judging from the scale of the crowd fleeing, there was clearly something terrifying chasing them. Ren Xiaosu asked Chen Wudi, can you hear the movement in front? Is there any strange roar? Chen Wudi nodded, yes. It seems to be an experimental subject. Lao Li, hurry up and turn around. Ren Xiaosu shouted. Now, Ren Xiaosu and his team must go back. When they find the main road in other directions, they will continue to flee in other directions to see if they can avoid the mysterious troops chasing them. Ren Xiaosu would rather face Li's troops than face the vast number of experimental subjects. When they were at the 109th barrier, the number of experimental subjects was already thousands. Now the other side has absorbed the entire 109th barrier. Even if someone says that the number of experimental subjects has reached 3,000, Ren Xiaosu will believe it. There were probably only a few hundred nano warriors following them, a few hundred on one side and a few thousand on the other side. It was not difficult to choose. It's really raining cats and dogs, Ren Xiaosu sighed. The huge barrier suddenly turned into a cage, filled with residents fleeing for their lives. The air defense system of the entire barrier did not work, which was not surprising to Ren Xiaosu. After all, even people like Hu Shuo rebelled, so the defense system inside the Li family became a fragile decoration like paper. The Li family was originally defending against the experimental subjects, but they could not have imagined that missiles would land on the city wall and even break the barrier. A couple was walking on the street. When they saw the vicious experimental subjects behind them, they also started to run wildly with the crowd. But while running, the girl suddenly fell to the ground, and the boy who said he would protect her for the rest of his life suddenly let go of her hand and continued to run forward alone. The girl cried out her boyfriend's name at the top of her lungs, but her boyfriend did not look back in the end. Horizontal ellipsis. A middle-aged man was pushing a wheelchair on the street. In the wheelchair was his father, who was paralyzed from the waist down due to a construction accident in his early years. When the experimental subject arrived, the middle-aged man suddenly abandoned the wheelchair and ran away by himself, leaving the old man to look at the hideous face of the experimental subject indifferently. In fact, the old man didn't want to live anymore. He had been abused by his family over the years, and his daughter-in-law even called him an old immortal to his face. Horizontal ellipsis. The ugliness hidden under the barriers and the indifference whitewashed by the prosperous city were all exposed in an instant. But in this crowd, a mother who sprained her foot pushed her child away. You go first. My dear, don't look back. Mom will catch up with you in a while. The child cried and didn't want to leave, and the mother burst into tears. Who'll save my child? Some people hid in their own houses, as if they thought that hiding in the house could escape the pursuit of those humanoid monsters. They trembled in the house. When they found that the monsters really didn't break in, they were excited. After that, the Li army would definitely kill the monsters. It was just a matter of time. By then, they will be saved. They just don't know that this experimental subject has only let them go temporarily. There is no need to chase down prey that will not escape at the first time. They can slowly look for it later. And Li's troops will not come to rescue them. Less than 2 minutes after Ren Xiaosu and his team turned around, they didn't even have time to find a fork in the road to turn, and he had already seen the mysterious troops coming towards them. The most conservative estimate is that there are more than 100 people on the other side. It's too late, this battle must be fought. Ren Xiaosu said calmly, "Woody, follow me. You come to cover me." As he spoke, Ren Xiaosu had already jumped out of the truck. The moment he jumped out, the outer armor had already wrapped his whole body. When Ren Xiaosu landed, the whole ground seemed to shake. When jumping out of the car, people will lose balance instantly due to inertia, but Ren Xiaosu's foot armor suddenly exerted force as soon as it touched the ground, and the whole person rushed out diagonally like a cannonball. Just the force of this kick made his speed surpass Li Qingxiang's truck in an instant. When the mysterious troops came towards him, Ren Xiaosu hit the front of the other party's car with his body from the front. "Get out of here." But Ren Xiaosu pushed the car with his shoulder, and in an instant, the other party's car was knocked over. Even though Ren Xiaosu was wearing an outer armor, his body still looked very small in front of the troop transport truck, but it was this tiny force that turned the car over. The nano-warriors in the car did not expect such a change. The moment Ren Xiaosu threw his hands, he suddenly threw out 4 poker cards in his hand and flew towards the next car. Time seemed to slow down. The driver in the car saw the exquisite poker cards spinning in the air and flying towards the car window. When they were about to get close to the car window, the driver saw the poker cards emitting golden light, like a burning sun. With a bang, 3 poker cards exploded, and the power directly flipped half of the front of the car. The whole car tilted and crashed into the building beside the road. The passers-by were terrified. They didn't expect to see such a shocking scene on the way to escape. The robot wearing outer armor was like a god. The people of the barrier had never seen such an individual power that surpassed common sense and cognition. It was as if they were in the future world. Of course, Ren Xiaosu was not so easy. Although the outer armor could relieve the force of the collision still made him a little overwhelmed. His whole shoulder was a little painful. Moreover, Ren Xiaosu knew very well that although the vehicle's rollover would cause some damage to the nano-warriors in the car, it would not kill him. What greeted him next would be the siege of hundreds of nano-warriors. Ren Xiaosu took a breath. He didn't know if he could win, but behind him were Yan Luoyuan, Xiaoyuji, and Wang Fuge. Life and death, he had no choice. Dozens of nano-warriors emerged from the overturned troop carrier and surrounded Ren Xiaosu in just 3 seconds. Each of them held a brand new nano-knife in their hands, and Ren Xiaosu would be chopped if he wasn't paying attention. A nano-warrior chopped at him, but Ren Xiaosu's palm suddenly arrived first. He actually grasped the back of the nano-knife with his right hand in an instant, and then chopped him on the head with a black knife, slicing the opponent from the right side of the neck to the chest and abdomen, and all life was cut off at this moment. But there were too many nano-warriors, and someone took advantage of his attack to sneak attack from behind, and the ripples on the blade of the nano-knife suddenly spread out in circles. The knife tore down, and even Ren Xiaosu's outer armor had a huge crack. Chen Wudi bravely opened a gap from the back and came to Ren Xiaosu's side, but there were 2 troop carriers outside driving quickly. "What should I do?" Ren Xiaosu panted. If the number of nano-warriors increases, he must start to consider escaping. But at this moment, the fuel tank of a nano-warrior's troop carrier exploded, and the entire troop carrier turned into a huge fireball in an instant, burning with the nano-warriors inside. Ren Xiaosu was stunned for a moment, until the roar of the sniper rifle shook him. He looked into the distance in astonishment, and there was a girl wearing a peaked cap on the tall building waving to him, as if to say that since you don't come to me, then I can only come to you. Ren Xiaosu took a deep breath and accelerated towards the nano-warriors outside the encirclement. Those nano-warriors who were just about to establish an effective defense were knocked over in an instant. Whenever someone wanted to effectively attack Ren Xiaosu, the sniper bullets from the sky would arrive as promised, destroying everything in their path. Ren Xiaosu panted violently. Although he had no choice, his reinforcements had arrived. The 4th update is asking for monthly tickets. There are more in the evening. I'll take a break first. Chapter 287 Iron Whale. Ren Xiaosu's strength is 10.5 and his agility is 10.1, which is still not very high. But when he has the outer armor, he completely becomes a land beast in the eyes of others. He no longer needs any fancy skills to kill people. He only needs to use absolute strength to crush individuals. Of course, if it is just like this, he will still be besieged by hundreds of nano-warriors. After all, when manpower is limited, even the energy of the outer armor is extremely limited. Fortunately, Yang Xiaojun came. Her perfect firearm skills made her not miss any shot, even if she was hundreds of meters away, even if Ren Xiaosu and the nano-warriors were moving at high speed. The status of the sniper rifle in infantry combat is extremely high. It represents super lethality and deterrence. It is the authority in an infantry war. All enemies must be afraid of its existence. Usually, snipers will choose to shoot cold shots to behead, but at this time, the sniper rifle in Yang Xiaojin's hand is like a long-range artillery, roaring non-stop. With a sniper rifle as cover, Ren Xiaosu was even more powerful, which made him more confident to carry out effective killing and breakthrough. The nano-warriors had been trying to complete the encirclement formation, but all these efforts became futile in the face of the cooperation between Yang Xiaojin and Ren Xiaosu. A nano just raised his knife to chop Ren Xiaosu from behind, but as soon as his arm was raised, he was taken away by the huge inertia of the sniper bullet. Whenever someone wants to attack from behind, the sniper bullet will inevitably come. For a while, no nano-warrior dared to stand behind Ren Xiaosu. And there was a Chen Wudi next to him who was swinging the golden hoop to sweep through thousands of troops. It was unknown how heavy the golden hoop was. Whenever it hit the nano-warrior, it would definitely end up with broken bones and tendons. All the residents of the fortress who fled were shocked to see this scene. This was a battle scene that only appeared in their imagination. The mechanical beast opened and closed, and even the ground was shattered inch by inch. But at this time, Ren Xiaosu suddenly found that the experimental subject behind him was about to catch up. He noticed from his peripheral vision that there were also experimental subjects frantically climbing up under the building where Yang Xiaojin was. Suddenly, a shadow door opened in the shadow of the rooftop. Yang Xiaojin kept shooting with a sniper rifle, and Luo Zinayu's voice came from the shadow door. "Xiaojin, hurry up, don't save him, it will be too late if you don't leave now." But Yang Xiaojin said nothing, and continued to shoot, reload, load, and continue shooting. Because of the recoil of the sniper rifle, even with her strong physical fitness, she began to feel pain from the shock. But she couldn't stop. If she stopped, what would happen to Ren Xiaosu? Luo Zinayu almost went crazy. "Hurry up, the experimental subject is about to climb up, please girl, it's too late." "Wait a little longer." Yang Xiaojin calmly threw away another magazine and replaced it with a new one. At this time, she had thrown away a lot of discarded magazines around her, and there were more than 10 magazines in her backpack. How could an ordinary sniper carry so many bullets like her? There is no such thing. Only she, the owner of perfect firearm skills, can use the sniper rifle to achieve an absolute fire suppression effect. Luo Zinayu was extremely anxious. She didn't know what Yang Xiaojin had gone crazy about. She didn't even care about her own safety. Yang Xiaojin kept staring through the scope. She wanted to help Ren Xiaosu eliminate the hidden danger. The next moment, the experimental subject had climbed onto the rooftop and pounced on Yang Xiaojin. Until the moment the experimental subject was in the air, Yang Xiaojin was still pulling the trigger. When the claws of the experimental subject touched the ends of Yang Xiaojin's hair, she held Luo Zinayu's palm and disappeared in a flash. Several experimental subjects that missed collided on the rooftop, and they roared in anger. Without the cover of the sniper rifle, Ren Xiaosu gradually began to struggle. The nano-warriors also realized that the sniper had retreated. They immediately formed a siege to kill Ren Xiaosu and Chen Wudi here. Ren Xiaosu realized that the energy of the outer armor was about to be exhausted, and the experimental subject was only a few hundred meters away from them. He sighed, and there were dead ends everywhere. But as Li Shenton said, when it comes to life and death, what can decide life and death is the anger and strength of those who are unwilling to die. Ren Xiaosu was very tired, but he still had a trump card. Although the power of 10.5 was not too high, when the city destruction was activated, it would be a new world. The city destruction skill only lasts for 30 seconds, so Ren Xiaosu has always regarded it as his biggest trump card. Ren Xiaosu attaches importance to it, not because of how much change the city destruction can bring to himself, but how much change it can bring to the shadow. Ren Xiaosu's eyes were red, and at this moment the world seemed to have turned red. A new world was coming, and the old world was about to die. When the city destruction was activated, Ren Xiaosu summoned the shadow. The formula for calculating the power of the shadow is very simple, that is, twice that of Ren Xiaosu. After Ren Xiaosu activated the city destruction, the shadow was 4 times his body. The moment the shadow separated from Ren Xiaosu, It leaped into the air towards the group of nano-warriors in front of it, and slashed with a knife. The nano-warriors in front of the shadow died one by one. When a nano-warrior raised his knife to chop at the shadow had passed him without knowing when, and the black knife in the shadow's hand also missed the opponent, and the figure was seen split into two. The so-called city destroying is the power that can really shake the city. The shadow held the neck of a nano-warrior all the way, using the human body as a shield, and rushed forward. The building collapsed in the collision, and the ground collapsed step by step. The black figure like an ink-black dragon descended on the earth. In the endless barrier street, in the panic of the crowd, the shadow of the boy was killing people. The black knife, the city destroying, the shadow, when they were put together, this is the power that can truly transcend the mundane. Even if it only lasts for 30 seconds. Ren Xiaosu panted, dozens of nano-warriors in front of the shadow, none of them could last more than half a second. Shadow stood at the end of the long street, surrounded by neon lights and prosperity, bustle and noise that were about to break. This was the world that was about to break. Shadow stood there quietly, pointing his black knife at all the nano-warriors in front of him, as if to convey his iron will to the world. If the difference in strength between them was not so obvious, the nano-warriors would still be willing to fight, but Shadow was too terrifying. They felt that even the armored forces would find it difficult to confront such a force head-on, right? Of course, they didn't know that they only had 30 seconds to destroy the city. The nano-warriors began to retreat, and they also saw the experimental subjects not far away. Since they could not defeat Ren Xiaosu, they could only retreat. Ren Xiaosu was relieved when he saw their retreat. The time to destroy the city was almost up. His strength was about to run out. Even the energy of his outer armor would end. He was already at the end of his strength. But at this moment, a nano-warrior carrying an RPG rocket in the shadow suddenly pulled the trigger. But he was not aiming at Ren Xiaosu, but at Chen Wudi. Invincible. Ren Xiaosu roared. Ah! Chen Wudi had just killed a nano-warrior when he heard his master calling his name and turned around immediately. But when he turned around, he saw Ren Xiaosu rushing towards him. His master, who always said that he was not a good person, was like a hero who came from the sky to protect the fragile dream of a mentally ill child, because the child's dream was to be a hero and a good person. But master, you are obviously a good person, the best person in the world. All the outer armor on Ren Xiaosu's body gathered in front of him in an instant. He was like holding a shield of God and blocking Chen Wudi. He tried to use all the power of the nano armor to resist the RPG rocket. With a loud bang, Ren Xiaosu and Chen Wudi were blown away by the huge air wave, and the outer armor was blown to pieces. Chen Wudi got up from the ground, Master. But he saw that the scattered armor suddenly turned into liquid and gathered towards Ren Xiaosu again, but Ren Xiaosu was already lying on the ground unconscious. I'm asking for monthly votes now. My ability is limited, but I've tried my best. I'll finish this volume tomorrow. Chapter 288. No more great sages in the world. Seeing the unconscious Ren Xiaosu, Chen Wudi rushed over frantically. He checked Ren Xiaosu's breath and found that his master was still alive. Thinking about it, it made sense. The armor had already taken the greatest damage for his master, and it did not cause any fatal injuries. It was just that Ren Xiaosu was too tired to resist the RPG, so he was overturned by the huge impact force. Thermal weapons, one of the crystallizations of wisdom of human civilization for thousands of years, are enough to kill gods. Chen Wudi wanted to carry Ren Xiaosu, but at this time the experimental subjects behind him were also coming. He shouted to Li Qingxiang, "You come and carry the master to the car." However, Li Qingxiang said with a bitter face, "Just now a stray bullet hit the engine in front of the truck, and the truck can't run." Seeing that the experimental subjects were coming, they faced difficulties one after another. Yan Luiyun suddenly said, "Everyone carry the injured students. Teacher Zhang Wu, you come with me to carry my brother, take turns." Yan Luiyun now has a nanorbit on him, but the energy of the nanorbit is not long-lasting, so he can't carry Ren Xiaosu too far alone, so he needs to go with Zhang Wu at this time. As soon as he finished speaking, Wang Fuge carried an injured student off the bus. At this time, Wang Yuqi and the others were still injured. There were 5 injured students alone, and now there was another one, Ren Xiaosu. A dozen girls helped on the side. Everyone was busy carrying the injured and moving forward. Everyone was at a loss. Ren Xiaosu was unconscious. What should they do? In the past, When Ren Xiaosu was there, everyone felt like they had a backbone. Even if the sky fell, Ren Xiaosu would support them. But now, Ren Xiaosu was unconscious, and he needed others to take care of him. This huge fortress city will sink into hell with war and flesh and blood. The prosperity will no longer exist, and civilization will become a thing of the past. The crowded and fleeing crowd passed by them, and the neon lights in the distance fell one by one. The sky will also fall. This is a dead end, a dead end. No one can survive in the gray flood of the experimental subject. At this time, the experimental subject was getting closer and closer, but Yan Luiyun seemed to have not seen it, and he just carried Ren Xiaosu on his back. There is no doubt that they cannot outrun the experimental subjects by supporting the wounded. And there are thousands of experimental subjects, and they cannot be defeated. Looking at the ferocious experimental subjects, everyone is faced with a choice: leave, or stay and die together. Yan Luiyun looked at the hesitant expressions of the others, and said coldly, "If you want to leave, you can leave now." As for him, Yan Luiyun, he would die with Ren Xiaosu. Seeing that the experimental subjects were less than 100 meters away from them, a girl bowed to Jiang Wu in tears. "Teacher, I'm sorry." After that, she ran forward alone, leaving everyone behind. Chen Wudi silently looked at her back. He opened his mouth to say something, but he didn't say it. No one blamed the girl. Between life and death, everyone had no choice. Jiang Wu silently took Ren Xiaosu from Yan Luiyun's back. "We tried it. Your nanorobbit can't hold it for long. Now I'm stronger. I'll carry him." Two more girls said sorry to Jiang Wu and ran away, but Jiang Wu didn't blame them. She just needed to give herself an explanation now. The injured Wang Yuqi fell to the ground because no one supported him. He smiled bitterly and said, "You go. Take the class leader with you. I can't go." "Lao Li, give me a grenade. I know you have two more hidden." Another student smiled and let go of the classmate who was supporting him. "That's perfect. Give me the other one. You go." These students were supposed to be sitting in a bright and clean classroom. The teacher was giving a lecture on the stage, and they would secretly pass small notes below. After class, they can go to the playground to play basketball, and after school, they can walk together in the afterglow of the sunset with their school bags on their backs. If they can get into college in the future, maybe they can learn more knowledge. There, they will meet the girl they like and spend the rest of their lives with each other. But this person's life suddenly came to an abrupt end at the age of 18, and there is no future. This long street leads all the way to the distance, but it seems like it will never end. The playground where the boy sweated also fell into the abyss. A will to die suddenly rose up. Wang Yuqi smiled and said, "Remember to live well." Chen Wudi looked back at the experimental subjects who were chasing him, and then looked at Wang Yuqi. "None of you have to die, I will cover you." "Ah." Li Qingxiang said anxiously, "Let's go together." "No need." Chen Wudi smiled and said, "Have you forgotten that I am the reincarnation of the Monkey King?" Everyone was silent, but the Monkey King couldn't beat so many experimental subjects, right? Chen Wudi said, "Other people are disciples who protect their masters, but in my case, it has always been the master who protects me." The master who said one thing and meant another and used the name of a bad guy as armor to protect himself. "Now it's my turn to protect you. I am the Monkey King." How can the Monkey King be afraid of demons? Even if I die, I have to drag those demons into hell with me. Chen Wudi walked towards countless experimental subjects step by step. His tiny figure in the gray frenzy was like an isolated island in front of a tsunami of dozens of meters. In the afterglow of the setting sun, a beam of light suddenly fell from the clouds, and it just happened to fall on Chen Wudi. Master said that he was that beam of light. He was the brightest, most dazzling, and most invincible beam of light in the world. Suddenly, Chen Wudi exerted his strength and ran wildly towards the experimental subject. Fine blood beads appeared all over his body, which was the price of burning his life. The shadow of the golden chainmail kept trembling on Chen Wudi, but it could never be successfully materialized. Chen Wudi roared, "Not enough. Come again." I said, "Come again." The flame in that life suddenly rose, and it was going to burn life. The sea of souls that dominated the world was surging, as if it was going to trace back to the past and present lives. Who was I in my previous life? The Monkey King of Huaguo Mountain? No. The Horse Keeper of Heaven? No. That's right, I am the great sage equaling heaven. I have been to the Western Paradise. I am the fighting Buddha who no one in this world can defeat. I have been to the Western Paradise. I have been to the Western Paradise. The next moment, The phoenix-winged purple gold crown on Chen Wudi's head came out of nothingness, and the two wings pointed straight to the sky and connected with the clouds. The next moment, the golden chainmail also came out of nothingness, and the golden light was like the scorching sun, competing with the sky for brilliance. The lotus silk cloud shoes also came together, stepping on the earth under his feet. Chen Wudi laughed loudly in the twilight. The great sage equal to heaven is here. Who dares to fight me? The great tsunami finally came in front of him, but Chen Wudi inserted the golden hoop in his hand into the ground, and then rolled it up to the sky. The power of the stick actually raised a wave of earth more than 10 feet from the ground, and buried all the experimental subjects in the front alive. The surging earth waves were like the anger of a shocking god. The buried experimental subjects struggled to climb out, but the soil was as hard as iron, suffocating them to death underneath. The experimental subjects behind rushed over fearlessly. Chen Wudi pulled a bunch of hair from behind his ear, put it to his mouth and blew it gently. Where are the monkeys and their descendants? Hundreds of monkeys and their descendants suddenly appeared with the wind. Here. Follow me to subdue the demon. Chen Wudi laughed loudly and rushed towards the experimental subject. The monkeys and their descendants pounced on the ferocious experimental subject and smashed it with sticks. The originally ferocious experimental subject was vulnerable to the monkeys and their descendants, and they were about to smash all the flesh and bones of the experimental subject with one stick. Just now, Chen Wudi said that he was the last one to leave, which meant that he really wanted to stop the great tide in front of him here and then break it. This is the real last one to leave. In an instant, Chen Wudi felt that the experimental subject in front of him suddenly turned into a demon from all directions, and the whole world was filled with black smoke and demonic energy. The intelligent body behind the experimental subject hid its whereabouts. It commanded a large number of experimental subjects to try to completely surround Chen Wudi. This was the most powerful enemy it had encountered since it walked out of Jingshan. It did not expect that there would be such a powerful and invincible enemy among humans. There were still humans hiding in the buildings beside the road. When they heard the noise, they quietly looked over from the window, only to see Chen Wudi in a dazzling golden armor like a peerless hero. But the experimental subject had already arrived. Chen Wudi vomited a mouthful of blood, but wanted to ask his master with a smile, "Master, do you think I am powerful?" "Master, from now on you must guard your own beam of light, it has not yet gone out." In an instant, he raised the golden hoop stick and pointed it at the sky. "The sky is falling." The next moment he roared and inserted the golden hoop stick in his hand into the ground, only to see that the ground was actually centered on the golden hoop stick, and a circle of golden light appeared. But the golden light was like ripples, the earth was like a lake, and the experimental subject was like a mosquito. In an instant, all the mosquitoes near the center of the lake were turned into powder. From this moment on, no more experimental subjects dared to pounce, and the great tsunami quickly fled to the outside of the barrier, running desperately. This is the first time that the experimental subject has been repelled since he walked out of the border mountain. Chen Wudi saved the day by burning his life. But from now on, Chen Wudi's life will reach the end of the sea. He sat on the ground and smiled stupidly, without any frustration in his eyes. He was thinking, if the master was here, he would definitely praise him, right? Thinking of this, Chen Wudi was even happier. Maybe he would even make him a bowl of bacon fried rice, with all the meat hidden at the bottom of the bowl. At this time, the barrier people who were hiding in the building next to him ran out. "Hero, are you okay?" Chen Wudi ignored them. At this time, he was already on his deathbed, and he was recalling the beautiful moments with his master. He was admitted to a mental hospital when he was a child. I heard that his mother ran away with others because of his illness, and his father was nowhere to be found. There were not many friends there, and there was nothing to look forward to on weekdays. He just felt that life was gloomy. In fact, Chen Wudi's spirit has always stayed in the summer when he was 8 years old, the summer when he vowed to become the Monkey King. But since he met the master, there are more fun things to do, and he can eat delicious food. Everyone protects him and no one calls him a fool. He especially wants to tell the master that you are a terrible driver. Please don't drive anymore. Master, when you wear armor, you look like a cow. Can't you make it look better? Master, the girl in the baseball cap on the tall building is the one you like. She is much better than my Ziksha. Master, your cooking is delicious. Master, you are the light. Chen Wudi smiled foolishly. However, at this moment, he suddenly turned his head to look to the side and saw a middle-aged man secretly grabbing a handful of soil. There was Chen Wudi's blood in the soil. Chen Wuti asked in a daze, "What are you doing?" The middle-aged man stammered and dared not speak. Chen Wuti shouted, "I asked you what are you doing?" The middle-aged man was almost crying. When he saw that he was discovered by Chen Wuti, he immediately knelt down. The Spark Company is buying the blood of extraordinary people. The overwhelming advertisements of the Spark Company still worked. Since he was not an extraordinary person and could not sell blood, he could sell other people's blood. As long as he sold blood once, he could get 1,000,000 wealth and live a life without worries. Chen Wuti smiled silently. This is the world. He remembered the middle-aged man who was saved by him on the way to escape from the 109th fortress and instigated others to steal his food. He remembered Liu Xiaojiang, who lived together and helped each other at the outpost day and night, but finally secretly carried everyone's food and ran away. He remembered the soldier who said that as long as he fell down deliberately, he could be carried by a fool. He remembered the soldier who was saved by him in the medical center and scolded him. Chen Wuti suddenly thought of everything in this world, and then smiled silently. He twisted the golden hoop in his hand, and a circle of golden light ripples spread around him again. This time, he turned all the people around him who wanted to take blood into dust. Until he turned into dust, the middle-aged man was still holding the blood's oil in his hand and was unwilling to let go. This was the first time that Chen Wuti took the initiative to kill someone, and it was also the last time. He remembered what his master said to him, "If you feel that you are constantly being swallowed by darkness, doesn't it mean that you are the light?" "But master, the whole world is dark." "Now, extinguish the light." Chen Wuti was sitting cross-legged. He gently placed the golden hoop between his knees. The wings on his head were as bright as new, and the golden chainmail was as bright as before. But suddenly, Chen Wuti began to petrify little by little from his feet. The petrified lines were like two dragons, entwined and climbing all the way to Chen Wuti's neck, until the whole person turned into a sculpture. When Chen Wuti first arrived at a mental hospital, his condition was not serious. He would always ask the nurse, "Sister, where are my parents?" The nurse would hold the medicine tray and say indifferently, "You have no parents, you jumped out of a stone. Since you jumped out of a stone, then go back to the stone." The monkeys and their descendants gathered around him, knelt down beside him and turned into light and shadow, and the clouds above the sky suddenly opened up and bloomed with colorful colors. The brilliance was so dazzling that it could be seen within a radius of 10 kilometers, like a rainbow after rain. Chen Wuti smiled for the last time. "Master, I'm leaving. This world no longer needs the Monkey King." Volume 2, The Great Sage on Earth, The End. This is a 2-in-1 chapter. The plot is special so I won't split it up. The update on the 26th, today's 2 chapters, a little overdrawn emotionally, sorry, I'll slow down. There will be a single chapter during the day, you can read it or not, if you are not interested, you can skip it. Chapter 289 A Glass of Wine. Volume 3, The Sorrow of the Times. The destruction of the 108th Fortress had a far-reaching impact. In the entire battlefield, this broad fortress itself was the largest forward base for the Li family's combat troops. The combat troops organized by the other rear fortresses rushed to the front line and would repair and resupply at the 108th fortress before continuing to advance northward. This was also the reason why the 108th fortress suddenly ran short of food. The Li family had not experienced a huge war, so they lacked experience. Many generals even thought that war was a very simple matter, and that they only needed the war machine to operate stably. They designed operating mechanisms and alternative plans for many years. However, when the war began, they realized that war was unpredictable and accidents were the most common form in war. After the 108th fortress was destroyed, the front-line troops of the Li family suddenly lost their complete supply line. The Yang family's armored forces continued to attack Yingsheng Mountain just to open a gap for their infiltration troops, and this strategy undoubtedly achieved great success. After the experimental subjects retreated, Yang's nano troops continued to destroy the rear and the main strategic facilities. However, Yang Xiaojun has disappeared. As one of the core figures of the Yang family, she seems to be not interested in the war itself, and the nano troops don't even know her arrival. It is rumored that the thugs and the Yang family have been at odds for a long time, but no one knows what the truth is. The supply line of the Li family has been cut off, and nothing can be seen in the short term, but if their rear troops cannot successfully complete the reconstruction of the supply line, then this will be a catastrophic blow to the Li family. After the Li family suffered this disaster, they have decided to retaliate against the Yang family at all costs. For the Southwest battlefield, everyone cares more about things like supply lines, but for the entire extraordinary world, the appearance of Chen Wuti is even a milestone event. The thugs once defined this period of time as the dawn of the gods, because no one in the entire extraordinary world has really been able to transcend the mundane world. Everyone is still afraid of hot weapons, and everyone is still hiding themselves under the shadow of the consortium. The power of the mundane world restricts the entire extraordinary world. However, the appearance of Chen Wuti put an end to this period of time. Those who were waiting silently in the entire extraordinary world defined the era after Chen Wuti's appearance as the rise of the gods. It was only because they had seen where the upper limit of the extraordinary was and hoped that they could reach that height. However, throughout the entire Dawn era, only Li Shantan could be called a demigod, and it seemed that only Chen Wuti could touch the threshold of the gods. That was the power that only gods could possess in the true sense. On the empty and dilapidated streets of the 108th barrier, a cold wind blew, and the tattered newspapers scattered on the ground were rolled into the air. The leaves were withered. There were cleaners in the previous barriers, but now everyone in the barriers has fled. Only a few people are still hiding at home, waiting for Li's rescue, but Li Shantan's missile troops intercepted all the rear troops of Li in the south, and they could not come in a short time. Li Shantan walked alone on the long street. He looked at a bleak scene around him, with no ripples in his eyes. The little girl Ren flew beside him in a white robe without saying a word. She felt the sadness and loneliness in Li Shantan's heart. Li Shantan came to the place where Chen Wuti had fought with the experimental subject before. He quietly looked at Chen Wuti's body that had turned into stone sculpture. He sighed and sat cross-legged opposite Chen Wuti. He sat there for a whole day and night, as if he no longer cared about everything in the outside world, and even put down his hatred for a short time. The artillery fire from the south and the north was still roaring, but the gap area of the 108th barrier suddenly became a quiet pure land. While Li Shantan was sitting there, Ren waited by his side without saying a word, never leaving a step, and never speaking. Suddenly sighing, Li Shantan said, "I suddenly envy Ren Xiaosu, that kid." Ren asked curiously, "Brother, are you feeling guilty?" "I don't feel guilty," Li Shantan shook his head and said, with a firm tone, "I am not wrong either. How could the strong heart of someone who can become a devil's whisperer be shaken?" From the moment he started his revenge, he had no intention of arguing with others about right or wrong. Even if he was wrong, so what? Li Shantan looked at the sculpture of Chen Wuti and said, "You and I are both people who walked out of the mental hospital." What he wanted to say was that among the people who walked out of the mental hospital in this era, he and Chen Wuti were like two extremes, one with a pure heart and a heart towards light, while the other was willing to sink into hell. Li Shantan liked the name of the devil whisperer very much, because the devil in his heart had long been enough to devour the world. But when Chen Wuti died, Li Shantan suddenly felt something. He stood on the edge of the abyss of endless darkness and wanted to jump, but it seemed that someone behind him was always calling his name softly. Li Shantan turned around and could only see nothingness. Li Shantan sat opposite Chen Wuti and said, "After revenge, it seems that I have nothing to do. If I am not dead at that time, I will go to protect your master for you." However, at this moment, Li Shantan suddenly froze for a moment. He turned around to look at Ren, but Ren had already dozed off in the air. He suddenly laughed, "Don't sleep, don't sleep. Li's family still has several fortresses. Those old guys may have already hidden. We have to find them." Inside the 88th fortress, Luolan was eating and drinking. Anyway, it was all thanks to Yang's hospitality, and it didn't cost any money. He couldn't leave the 88th fortress before the cooperation between Yang and Qing was completed. The reason why Yang was willing to establish a foundation of trust and cooperation with Qingzhen was precisely because Luolan came here in person. This was the sincerity of Qingzhen and Luolan. Organizations with sophisticated intelligence channels knew very well that as long as Luolan was here with Yang, Qingzhen would not tear up the alliance between the two parties without reason. Of course, Luolan was also very clear about his current hostage situation, but he was very calm. He had made up his mind to eat and drink for free. Although he couldn't leave the 88th fortress, it had to be said that the treatment Yang gave him was absolutely the highest standard. But at this moment, a crow suddenly flew onto the dining table. Luolan untied the small bamboo tube on the crow's leg, and there was a note inside. Luolan's fat fingers unfolded the rolled-up note, but he froze as soon as he read the content. Luolan's confidant asked, "Boss, what's wrong?" "Nothing," Luolan sighed, and he poured the wine in the glass onto the ground. The friend who had saved his life and always said that he was Benbober was gone. Chapter 290, Humans' joys and sorrows are never shared. Once, when Ren Xiaosu heard about the dawn of the gods, he felt that the mob had given this name too carelessly. Usually when people see the dawn of the gods, they always think of the twilight of the gods, which sounds unlucky. And the problem is, what is the better name for the period between dawn and dusk? Early morning of the gods? It doesn't seem right. Noon of the gods? It doesn't seem right either. And what era is after the twilight of the gods? The midnight of the gods? When Ren Xiaosu seriously discussed this topic with Yan Luolan, they were still running a pharmacy in the 109th fortress, and Luolan was still crawling in the sewer. When Yan Luolan heard Ren Xiaosu say these words, he almost laughed his head off. But now, the boy who told Yan Luolan bad jokes can only lie unconscious on Zhang Wu's back, and he doesn't even know where he is. Yan Luolan led everyone to leave the 108th barrier in the crowd of refugees. Now that Ren Xiaosu could not lead everyone, it was natural for him, as a younger brother, to step forward. They had to leave. The power of the Li family in the 108th barrier had not been completely destroyed. Now the nano-warriors of the Li family and the Yang family were still fighting each other in the wilderness. After the Yang family succeeded, they wanted to evacuate, but it was not that easy. But if they waited until the battle was over, they would probably reorganize their forces to arrest them. Ren Xiaosu did not hold back when he used the shadow before, so some of Ren Xiaosu's secrets might be exposed. After all, there were nano-warriors of the Li family who escaped at that time. Of course, at that time, Ren Xiaosu was covered in armor and did not even show his face, so it was reasonable to say that it was Su Xianshu. Although he turned all the armor into a shield in the end, at that time, the Li family did not care about who Ren Xiaosu was, and they did not have any video data of Ren Xiaosu to identify. Moreover, the nano-warriors of the Li family who participated in the battle might not have survived. When Yan Luolan and his team fled, the nano-warriors of the Yang family had already arrived and instantly broke out into a battle with the nano-warriors of the Li family. Of course, even if he thought so, it was still to be confirmed whether anyone had discovered the secret of Ren Xiaosu, and at the moment, the secret was no longer Yan Luolan's top priority. What he needed to consider was how to stabilize Ren Xiaosu's injuries and take everyone away safely. The car had broken down, so they could only walk all the way with the refugees to move north. On the way, Yan Luolan also wanted to find a car, but the cars they found on the roadside were all damaged and could not be driven. Without Ren Xiaosu, they didn't even prepare much food this time. Unlike the previous prepared escapes, Yan Luolan and his team were as embarrassed as other refugees this time. Sister Xiaoyu did make a lot of preparations, but now they had 6 wounded people, including Ren Xiaosu, and it was already too much to take care of the wounded, and they had to take turns to carry people. So on the way to escape, they discarded some supplies, and only kept some necessary food and supplies for survival in the wilderness, such as matches. It's not that supplies are not important, but they think that people are more important. Yan Luolan wore gloves, and all the skin below the neck was covered, because in case of a conflict with the refugees, the only thing the whole team can rely on is the nanorobots on Yan Luolan. Wang Fuge, Li Qingzhen, and Sister Xiaoyu have little combat power and can only rely on pistols for the time being, not to mention the others. The nanorobots on several male classmates combined are not as many as Yan Luolan. Moreover, there is a half-second delay in their control of the nanorobots. If they fight with people, the nanorobots haven't reacted yet, and the other person's fist has already hit their face. Yan Luolan has some talent in controlling nanorobots. He can even gather nanorobots in specific parts now. When fighting, as long as he wears gloves, there will be no silver lines on his face. In the past, in the refugee team, Ren Xiaosu was responsible for clearing the way in front, in order to ensure that the team behind was not squeezed out by the crowd, but this time the person who cleared the way was replaced by Yan Luolan. "Luolan," Wang Fuge said, "how about Li Qingzhen and I take your place for a while, so you can take a rest?" Yan Luolan turned around and said, "No need, I will do what my brother did before." The refugee team walked all the way north. In the cold winter with snow, they could not walk far in a day. But they did not dare to look back, because those terrifying experimental subjects might be following them. Although there was a lot of noise in the barrier before, most of the refugees who escaped did not even know what happened, Nor did they know who saved them. A small number of people knew that the monster might have been driven away, but that person was dead. What if the monster came back again? That night, the refugees stopped not too far north of the barrier, and looked at a broken barrier from a distance in a daze. Yan Liwen walked into the wilderness alone, carrying a pot, a rope, and the shriveled buns brought by Sister Xiaoyu. Their food rations were only enough for 2 days. If they wanted to last longer, he could only learn to hunt like Ren Xiaosu. Moreover, the injured Ren Xiaosu needed to eat meat, not just dry food. Yan Liwen recalled that Ren Xiaosu had only taught him how to catch sparrows, because catching sparrows was the simplest hunting technique. Sparrows are not migratory birds, so in winter, some sparrows have been out of food for a long time, which is the best time to catch them. But after Yan Liwen set up the big pot, he lay in the snow for 4 hours without seeing a single sparrow peck at the pot. During this time, Yan Liwen clearly saw several sparrows landed on the snow, but when his breathing became slightly disordered, the sparrows were startled and left. Birds are one of the most alert animals, and birds after the disaster are even more cunning. Yan Liwen was not discouraged. He adjusted his breathing again. In the past, Ren Xiaosu would tell him that catching sparrows was easy, but when he really tried it himself, he found that Ren Xiaosu was just pretending to be relaxed. It was very hard to lie in the snow alone. The body was stuck in the snow, and the freezing cold air penetrated through the gaps in the clothes, like a knife, cutting the skin again and again. And all around, there was an uninhabited wilderness. There was no one to talk to, and there was no entertainment to pass the time. Only loneliness remained. For a whole night, Yan Liwen lay in the snow without moving, and his hands and feet were numb. Once a sparrow came to take away the steamed bun crumbs under his pot, but when Yan Liwen wanted to pounce on it, he found that he had lost his agility. The huge sparrow overturned the iron pot and flew away. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 291, Yan Liwen Hunting. It turns out that you can't just lie there and not move, you have to adjust your posture from time to time to keep your joints active. Until the early morning, when Yan Liwen was so sleepy that he was about to close his eyes and fall asleep, a sparrow flew in from under the pot again. Yan Liwen's hand immediately tightened the rope, and the iron pot supporting the wooden stick was buckled into the snow with a thud. Yan Liwen gritted his teeth and pounced on it. He felt that his joints were wailing, but fortunately he still had nanorobits. He pressed hard on the iron pot, and dared to reach in after confirming that the sparrow was firmly pressed down, but as soon as he reached in, he was pecked and felt a piercing pain. This is different from what Ren Xiaosu said. Yan Liwen roared in a low voice. It took him half a day to twist the sparrow's neck. But after twisting it off, there were 3 bloody holes on the back of his hand. Yan Liwen sat on the ground holding the sparrow and burst into tears instantly. There was no one around, so he cried louder and louder. He was not aggrieved for himself, but for Ren Xiaosu. Ren Xiaosu always said to him how fun the wilderness was and how easy hunting was. Yan Liwen knew that Ren Xiaosu was lying. But people's joys and sorrows are never the same, so during the most difficult days, Yan Liwen thought he understood how hard Ren Xiaosu was, but now he didn't expect that the suffering Ren Xiaosu endured at that time was much harder than he imagined. Only when you have experienced this kind of thing yourself can you truly understand what Ren Xiaosu has shouldered for you all those years and why Ren Xiaosu never let him go hunting in the wilderness. The boy didn't have nanorobits or gloves at the time. Yan Liwen wiped his tears and walked towards the camp. Sister Xiaoyu saw the blood on his hand and quickly bandaged him with heartache. "Is my brother awake?" Yan Liwen asked. Wang Fuge shook his head with a frown. "We don't have a doctor, and we don't even know where he's injured. We can only determine that there are fractures in some places, but we don't know what other internal injuries there are." Just now, Sister Xiaoyu ground up the antibiotics and made a liquid medicine, and fed some to Ren Xiaosu to prevent inflammation of his wounds, or symptoms of high fever, cold, and cough after his resistance is reduced. Originally, everyone was worried that Ren Xiaosu would not open his mouth and couldn't feed the medicine. Everyone thought of letting teacher Zhang Wu feed him by mouth, and Zhang Wu didn't object. After all, saving lives is important. Fortunately, Ren Xiaosu didn't clench his mouth tightly, and he swallowed a liquid medicine when he put it in his mouth with a spoon. Yan Liwen handed the sparrow to Sister Xiaoyu. "Sister, make some soup for my brother." After saying that, he sat beside Ren Xiaosu in a daze. Wang Fuga said to Yan Liwen, "Don't worry too much, your brother is very lucky, he will be fine." In fact, Yan Liwen also firmly believed this. Ren Xiaosu was a superhuman. With the physical fitness of a superhuman, he would not be tortured to death by illness as long as the injury was not fatal. He also made a wish for Ren Xiaosu, and now he was just waiting to see what the backlash would be. Usually, Yan Liwen would judge Ren Xiaosu's safety based on the degree of danger of the backlash. At this time, Sister Xiaoyu had plucked the feathers of the sparrow and even peeled the internal organs and put them aside. When this woman first lived with Ren Xiaosu, Yan Liwen and others, she would scream in fear even when a chicken was killed. At that time, Ren Xiaosu and Yan Liwen always laughed at her. As a result, now, her movements are so skilled that they can't be more skilled. Life makes people grow. Sister Xiaoyu is willing to change for Ren Xiaosu and Yan Liwen. The water in the pot was already boiling, and she threw the sparrows in. As soon as the sparrows were put into the pot, the fragrance floated out with a boiling steam. It was early morning, and many refugees suddenly woke up from their sleep when they smelled the fragrance. Everyone looked over here with surprise. When these refugees fled, they thought most about taking their own valuables, such as watches, jewelry, gold, silver, and cash. Sister Xiaoyu and her friends had rich experience in fleeing, and they knew very well what was most needed in the wilderness. Lao Wang had already exchanged his money for medicines that were easier to cash, and only brought a small amount of gold and cash. In war, gold is not as precious as medicine. At this time, someone slowly walked towards Sister Xiaoyu and her friends. The refugees had been hungry for a day and were now starving. A middle-aged man said, "Can you give me a bowl of soup?" While speaking, the man did not even ask in a tone. Sister Xiaoyu glanced at him and said, "Get lost." Yan Liwen looked at these people coldly. He knew the true faces of these people too well. Those who dared to come over were shameless. The kind-hearted and honest people sat there without moving, because they knew how precious the broth was at this time and were embarrassed to ask for it. But a fat middle-aged man was surrounded by others and came over. When the middle-aged man saw Jiang Wu and others, his eyes lit up. You know, Jiang Wu was very beautiful, and she was surrounded by female students. The men in this team were either old men like Wang Fuga or wounded soldiers like Wang Yuqi and Ren Xiaosu. Yan Liwen looked so young, so this team looked easy to bully. The fat man said arrogantly, "I am the director of the logistics department of the 108th fortress, Su Shiduan." Yan Liwen stood up with a sneer, and he walked to Su Shiduan. "You are not welcome here." Su Shiduan was so angry that he laughed. "Where did you come from, little brat? Get out of the way, it's wartime control now, your food has been requisitioned." Before he finished speaking, Su Shiduan stared at the dagger on his chest. He didn't expect that the young man in front of him would stab him without saying a word. Yan Liwen slowly pulled out the dagger, letting the blood splashing from Su Shiduan's wound splash on his face. Everyone around was stunned, and then retreated in fear. Yan Liwen said calmly, "Don't let anyone come near us, I will only say this once." Ren Xiaosu once told him in the market town that he should not be afraid of causing trouble. In this wilderness, you can only live longer if you make everyone afraid of you. But you also need to be careful when causing trouble. Find the initiator and don't expand the scope of attack. In this way, the initiator will be abandoned by others, but you will not be attacked by the crowd. It is human nature to cherish life. When the people of the fortress who have been used to the comfort of the fortress for a long time find that someone dares to kill people and someone is more cruel than them, they will subconsciously choose to retreat. In the past, Ren Xiaosu did this kind of thing. Now that Ren Xiaosu is still unconscious, it will be done by Yan Liwen, just like what Ren Xiaosu did for him before. The refugees began to retreat far away. Sister Xiaoyu came over and wiped the blood off Yan Liwen's face with her sleeve. Yan Liwen suddenly sighed and said, "Sister Xiaoyu, today I finally understand what my brother was carrying before." Recommending my friend Li Hongshan's new book Creating Super Fantasy. The old author guarantees that Xiao Hongshan's character is still very good. If you like it, you can support it. The young man sat on a chair, facing the sea. Holding a wisp of spiritual energy, he pointed to this magnificent world from afar. Wherever there is something wrong, there is it. Someone once made a last sound with a knife, slashed a dragon, and bathed in dragon blood. Someone once liked to treat people to chicken soup and raised 9 phoenixes in the backyard. Some people once sat on the top of a mountain, eloquent, and suppressed millions of troops with one breath. Some people once moved mountains and painted a beautiful picture that could trap immortals and gods. And that year, spring came and flowers bloomed. They were just ordinary pig butchers, stinky scholars, chicken farmers, and poor painters. This is a story about transforming a low-level martial arts continent into a super fantasy world. Chapter 292 Awakening. Although the sparrow is big, the meat is not enough for 30 people. Jiang Wu originally had 28 students, and now 3 of them have run away, leaving 25 people. Here we have to count Wang Fuge, Wang Dalin, Yan Liuan, Li Xiaosu, and Ren Xiaosu. How can one sparrow be enough? When cooking sparrows, Sister Xiaoyu was counting their supplies beside them. She sighed and said, "I'm afraid this dry food will be eaten up in 2 days." Yan Liuan pursed his lips. If Ren Xiaosu was here, they wouldn't have to worry about such a problem. At this moment, someone suddenly whispered, "I saw them." The person who spoke was a student. Yan Liuan was stunned for a moment and asked, "Who did you see?" "Classmates," Wang Yuqi said sadly. "They must have seen us, but they didn't dare to come over." Only then did Yan Liuan understand that they were talking about the 3 female classmates who had left them before. Yan Liuan turned his head to look at Jiang Wu, but he found that Jiang Wu was sitting woodenly next to Ren Xiaosu at this time, not saying a word. "Teacher Jiang Wu!" Yan Liuan shouted. Jiang Wu smiled bitterly. "I don't blame them, let them be." It seemed that Jiang Wu had not thought about finding the 3 female classmates. Yan Liuan saw that Jiang Wu's hands were clenched into fists, and his nails were about to pierce his palms and bleed. Suddenly, Jiang Wu said, "Can you give them my share of dry food? I can starve." Yan Liuan suddenly realized that although he had 10,000 objections in his heart, this was probably the reason why his brother was willing to save Jiang Wu. What would Ren Xiaosu choose if he was awake? "Okay," Yan Liuan sighed, "but Teacher Jiang Wu, you don't have to starve. People in a team have made a decision, so let's share the responsibility." After that, Yan Liuan asked a male classmate to carry a small bag of dry food to the other party. The male classmate stuffed the bag into the female classmate's hand and turned away without saying a word. The 3 girls sat on the ground, hugged their knees and cried loudly. Yan Liuan turned his head away and didn't look at them anymore. At this moment, no one blamed them for anything, because facing the threat of the experimental body in this wasteland, and Ren Xiaosu was unconscious, so it was reasonable for them to make the choice at that time. Although everyone was sad, the other party did not do anything wrong. In this world, what else is more important than one's own life? But understanding is understanding, and real acceptance is impossible. "Then let them go," Yan Liuan said calmly. "This road is chosen by themselves, there is nothing they can do, and their current situation is not good. They may face the threat from the Li family again at any time, so everyone should go their own way." At this time, Sister Xiaoyu reminded, "There are a lot of refugees here. Is there a doctor inside? If there's a doctor, let him come and see what's going on with Xiaosu." Yan Liuan suddenly woke up. "Yes, yes, yes." As he said that, Yan Liuan walked into the crowd of refugees with a dagger and shouted, "Who is the doctor? Stand up and heal my brother's injury. There will be steamed buns to eat." Suddenly, several people in the refugee crowd raised their hands, mainly because the words of steamed buns to eat were too tempting. Food in the wilderness is as precious as gold. This is just the beginning of the escape. It is not impossible that the steamed bun will be replaced by a beautiful woman in 2 days. Yan Liuan glanced at them and said coldly, "If you are not a doctor, don't shout. If I find out that you are an imposter and delay my brother's injury, don't blame me for being rude." As a result, as soon as he finished speaking, several people immediately put down their raised hands. After all, Yan Liuan's power was still there after he had just killed someone. The director of the logistics department was not yet cold. Who would dare to commit a crime at this time? Yan Liuan asked, "What do you treat?" A middle-aged man with gold-rimmed glasses came out and said, "I am from the Barrier Orthopedic Hospital. I have noticed your brother's condition a long time ago. He should have a fracture." Yan Liuan was stunned for a moment. "Then come and treat my brother." The middle-aged man stood still, and Yan Liuan was happy. He stuffed a shriveled steamed bun into the other person's hand, and the other person moved again. The doctor walked over to Ren Xiaosu and squatted down. Yan Luiyun asked, "If it's just a fracture, why hasn't my brother woke up yet?" The doctor's fingers probed Ren Xiaosu's body and he said, "With so many fractures, he must have been hit hard, right?" "Look at the injuries first," Yan Luiyun said. After a while, the doctor said, "It's roughly estimated that there are more than 10 fractures, and there are even comminuted fractures. Such a strong impact must have affected the brain, so he won't wake up for a while. Then let's straighten his bones first," Yan Luiyun said. The doctor shook his head and said, "I can only straighten the fractures and dislocations of the limbs, but for other parts, I need professional auxiliary equipment, and even have to put steel nails into the bones to ensure that he can recover better, but even so, he will definitely not be able to recover completely. I'm afraid his life will be a little different from that of ordinary people in the future." The doctor had already said it as tactfully as possible. To put it bluntly, he was not sure that he could straighten Ren Xiaosu perfectly, and comminuted fractures were a symptom that could not be cured by just trying hard. Not to mention that he can't even see an X-ray now. Even if he could, he couldn't do it. Yan Luiyun's face immediately darkened. Ren Xiaosu was going to be disabled? He didn't believe it. He didn't want to believe it. At this time, Sister Xiaoyu asked with a frown, "Will there be any problems with his brain? For example, amnesia?" The doctor explained, "Although I am not a brain doctor, I know that amnesia is not a common condition. There is no need to consider this concern for the time being. If his broken bones are not connected, it is very likely to cause necrosis. Then there is no hope, at least in this wilderness." Yan Luiyun was silent. To be honest, he hoped that Ren Xiaosu could forget some people and some things. He knew that Ren Xiaosu was a very loyal person, otherwise he would not have taken in Chen Wudi, otherwise he would not have saved Li Qingzheng, so he didn't know how sad Ren Xiaosu would be when he woke up. If Ren Xiaosu woke up and knew that Chen Wudi was gone, what would be his reaction? Yan Luiyun would rather Ren Xiaosu lose his memory. Suddenly, a weak voice sounded, "Let him go, I don't need anyone else to treat my injury." Yan Luiyun looked back in surprise, and he found that Ren Xiaosu had opened his eyes, but there was deep fatigue in his eyes. "Brother, let the doctor fix your bones," Yan Luiyun whispered. "No, I can do it myself," Ren Xiaosu smiled with difficulty. He looked around, and it was difficult for him to even move his neck. But he suddenly froze for a moment. "Where is Wudi? Have you seen Wudi?" Chapter 293 Healing Your Own Bones. Everyone around fell silent. They didn't know how to explain to Ren Xiaosu. They didn't even want to explain anything to Ren Xiaosu from the bottom of their hearts. They just hoped that Ren Xiaosu would be kept in the dark forever. Wang Fuga said, "Big brother said he had something to do and would leave for a while." Ren Xiaosu stared at Wang Fuga blankly. He was not a fool, or he was a little smarter than most people. There was no need to say anything else. He had already guessed the truth. So when Wang Fuga said this, Ren Xiaosu, who was lying down, suddenly shed 2 lines of tears. How did he leave? After Yan Luiyun asked the doctor to leave, he sat next to Ren Xiaosu. When Brother Wudi left, he beat the demons of all directions with his stick and stepped on thousands of demons and monsters. Colorful clouds bloomed in the sky, and the bright light was projected on him, as if a door to heaven was open for him. I guess someone from heaven came to pick him up. Ren Xiaosu didn't say anything else, and the surroundings fell silent again. But Yan Luiyun suddenly found that Ren Xiaosu was trembling all over, and even his face flushed. Yan Luiyun lifted up Ren Xiaosu's trouser legs and sleeves, and found that the blood vessels in Ren Xiaosu's legs and hands had turned silver. Yan Luiyun himself also had nanorbits, so he knew very well what was going on. Ren Xiaosu actually used nanorbits to force his bones to be fixed without any anesthesia. There are always people who describe their pain as pain that goes to the bone marrow, but most of the time this is an exaggeration. And now Ren Xiaosu's pain goes to the bone marrow, and it is not an exaggeration. His bones were broken, and pieces of bones were stuck in his flesh and blood. He needed to use nanorbits to constantly move the bone pieces and stick them back to his broken bones. It was like playing a jigsaw puzzle, and sometimes if you put it wrong, you need to take it off and put it back together. That kind of pain, just by connecting an arm, made Ren Xiaosu faint directly. After a while, Ren Xiaosu woke up, and after waking up, he continued to use nanorbits to fix his bones without saying a word. Yan Liwen was crying so hard that his voice was almost incoherent. Brother, please take a break. Please stop. But Ren Xiaosu gritted his teeth and said nothing. He couldn't stop. He had to fix the bones as soon as possible and then fix them with nanorbits, so that he wouldn't have any sequelae in the future. This wasteland was too dangerous. If he was a cripple in the future, how would he face the unknown danger? He woke up and fainted, and woke up again and fainted. He didn't know how many times he had repeated this. Yan Liwen suddenly realized that Ren Xiaosu was using the pain in his body to suppress the pain in his heart. The pain in his heart was like someone stabbing a hole in his heart, empty. When Wang Fuguan Li Kingzhang understood what Ren Xiaosu was doing, they were shocked. If they hadn't seen it with their own eyes, they would find it hard to believe that someone could endure such pain to fix his own bones. Ordinary people would scream in pain even if they were cut once, but Ren Xiaosu was now cutting countless knives in his body. Only in this way could he take out the bone fragment stuck in his flesh and blood. Ren Xiaosu fell into deep sleep only after all his bones were repaired and fixed with nanorbits. His sweat had soaked his clothes. Sister Xiaoi wiped away his sweat while wiping away her tears. Yan Liwen suddenly said, "When my brother didn't know how to hunt, we all ate wild vegetables." Everyone was stunned for a moment. They didn't know why Yan Liwen suddenly said this. Yan Liwen continued, "No one taught him which wild vegetables were not edible and which were edible. Some wild vegetables are very bitter, and some are slightly poisonous. How do you think he knew which ones were edible? He tasted them first and left the edible ones for me. Uncle Fugang is right. My brother is very lucky. If he wasn't, he would have been poisoned to death in the wilderness." At this time, the refugees saw that there was no more dangerous things happening, so they decided to stay in the camp and wait for the rescue of the Li army. They firmly believed that the Li army would come to rescue them. After all, they were legal residents of the fortress. During the day, Yan Liwen took a short nap. No one from the fortress dared to approach them during the day. The refugees who escaped from the market town sensed a familiar aura in Yan Liwen, who was as ruthless as them in making a living in the wilderness. At night, Yan Liwen stayed by Ren Xiaosu's side. He was the one who kept watch before, and he still does. In the middle of the night, everyone was awakened by a wailing sound. They looked towards the source of the sound and saw Yan Liwen standing by Ren Xiaosu with bloody hands. At his feet were two adults, one of whom was still lingering. Yan Liwen grabbed the man's hair and pulled him up. He calmly wiped the dagger across his neck. "If anyone sneaks up on us again, this will be the end. If you want to find food, go find it in the wilderness." Ren Xiaosu and Yan Liwen were a little confused. Why Yan Liwen was also a transcendent, but his physical strength didn't seem to increase much? According to the progress of other extraordinary people, after awakening for so long, their physical fitness should be much higher than that of adults, but Yan Liwen is not like this. It seems that his identity as an extraordinary person is fake, and he can't even resist ordinary backlash. And now Ren Xiaosu uses nanorbits to help him make up for this shortcoming. The people of the barrier looked at Yan Liwen in fear. They suddenly realized that this child was going crazy. As long as someone might throw the unconscious boy beside him, the other party would kill him without hesitation. Moreover, they felt that Yan Liwen hated them from the bottom of his heart. Someone whispered from a distance, "Wait for the army to come back and report all their evil deeds. What awaits them will only be severe sanctions." Yes, Li's army should be here soon. But when they said these words, they also felt that something was wrong in their hearts. It has been a day, why hasn't Li's army arrived yet? Even if there is a war on the front line of Qingsheng Mountain, there are still several troops in the barrier behind. Why didn't anyone come? However, at this moment, the lights of vehicles approached from the north, and the refugees were all excited. Li's troops are finally here. We are saved. But when the vehicles approached, they saw that the refugees had no intention of stopping, and the long convoy continued to drive south. When the rear infantry passed by, someone suddenly grabbed a soldier and shouted, "Sir, where are you going? Save us! Save us, give us some food." Chapter 294 Yang's Refugee Camp. The soldier said indifferently, "Save you? Then who will save us? The Qingsheng Mountain line in the north has fallen. Yang's armored brigade and infantry brigade will arrive soon. We have to retreat to Guangying Mountain in the rear. What should we do? There are murderers here," one person said with a crying voice. As a result, at this moment, an officer in the Li army shouted, "Raise your guns and be on guard." You don't know what to do after losing the battle? Prevent spies from mixing in their crowd and forbid them to approach. The sound of bolts was heard. The Li army actually pointed the guns directly at the refugees and shouted loudly for the refugees to retreat. The refugees never dreamed that the Li army, which they had been waiting for a whole day, would treat them like this. They were anxious. You can't treat the legal residents of the fortress like this. I'm going to complain to you. But when the Li army heard this, someone laughed. Complain. Where to complain? You can survive first. After that, the Li army continued to evacuate. Some refugees wanted to chase them, but they heard gunshots. Li's bullets hit their feet, warning them not to move. Some refugees collapsed on the spot. When the barrier collapsed, their worldview was already impacted. When the rescuers they were expecting abandoned them, it was another severe shock. Yan Liwen and his friends had different ideas from the refugees. At this time, Yan Liwen was more worried that Li would take them away. At the moment, he least wanted to contact Li's troops. After all, Ren Xiaosu's current identity was more sensitive. At night, 8 hours after Li left, Ren Xiaosu woke up again. This time his eyes were calm. Go to the mountains, don't stay here. At this time, Ren Xiaosu had already vaguely thought of retreating to the mountains. Of course, it was also the appearance of the seeds that gave him the ability to retreat to the mountains with everyone. Those seeds were enough for him to open up a small piece of pure land in the wilderness. The only bad thing was that it took 100 days to heal a broken bone. Although Ren Xiaosu's physical fitness was much better than that of ordinary people, it would probably take dozens of days to recover. But suddenly, from the north, there was a peculiar sound of armored vehicle tracks moving through the mountains and forests. After the armored vehicles rolled over, the originally white snow-covered ground turned up pieces of soil, revealing the black ground underneath. Ren Xiaosu lay there unable to move. He frowned and sighed. It's too late. It was only because he was unconscious for too long that he missed the best time to leave. Seeing Yang's armored brigade and infantry brigade coming quickly, the refugees said calmly, Yang will not do anything to us. We are just civilians and did not participate in the war. Yes, the war was started by the Li family, and it has nothing to do with us. Even if Yang occupied the 108th fortress, we are still legal residents of the 108th fortress, someone said. When Yang's troops arrived, an officer in the armored vehicle frowned and looked at the refugees. He signaled the team to stop. People in the 108th fortress, level 1 alert, prevent these people from attacking the team. Send 2 reinforced companies to confiscate everyone's guns. The officer jumped off the armored vehicle, and Yang's 2 reinforced companies quickly rushed into the crowd. Whenever they encountered a little resistance, they fired warning shots or knocked people over with the butts of their guns. Are you refugees from the 108th fortress? The officer obviously knew what happened in 108, so when he met the refugees, he understood what was going on. A refugee replied, Yes, we are the original residents of the 108th fortress, sir. We unconditionally obey Yang's command and wholeheartedly support our Yang's occupation of the 108th fortress. But sir, can you help us clean up the 108th fortress? Let us return to our homes. Just a glance, these refugees changed their identities. In their bones, they will not have any sense of belonging to any consortium. Whoever rules will obey. However, the officer did not appreciate it. Go back to 108? Who knows if there are spies among you? What if you make trouble in the rear when we go to Guangying Mountain to fight? Then, the officer said to the adjutant beside him, 2 reinforced companies stay here, let these refugees build a refugee camp here by themselves, and keep a close watch on them. Every consortium needs people. With talents, there is productivity. Otherwise, who will mine and who will be responsible for production in the factory? So for the consortium, people are also one of the resources, and they certainly will not kill innocent people. But before the end of the war, these people can't think of leaving the refugee camp. At this time, the Li army on the Qingsheng mountain line had collapsed, and the Shuanggang mountain, Tantao mountain, and Fengai mountain line faced by the Qing family in the east were also defeated. The Li family was doomed and could only retreat to the southernmost part to rely on natural barriers to defend their last bit of territory. There, the 3 consortiums still have a hard battle to fight. The Yang army continued to march south, while the 2 reinforced companies with live ammunition stayed behind as the guardians of the refugee camp. The commander of the reinforced company said, I will assign you the tasks you need to do every day. If you can't complete them, Don't blame me for being rude. If you want to build a refugee camp, you have to cut down the surrounding trees first, and then use the wood to build houses. The tools are all carried by the reinforced company. The two reinforced companies are the combat sequence of the engineering battalion, which is specially used to build roads for the armored troops. Now that the road ahead of Yang is smooth, the pressure of the engineering battalion is not so great, so two reinforced companies can be separated to stay here. Yang's troops are very efficient. It only took an hour to count the number of people and assign tasks to everyone. But Yan Liwen suddenly found that the task allocation actually included the wounded, and even the wounded had to complete the workload in full. Now Ren Xiaosu's injuries have not healed, and he is still sleeping and waking up. How can he complete the workload? If Ren Xiaosu's injuries are healed, they can fight their way out of the refugee camp. Ren Xiaosu's outer armor is not afraid of these ordinary soldiers at all, but there is no if. What should we do now? Wang Fuge looked at Ren Xiaosu, who had fainted again. We can only hide here first, Yan Liwen said. Fortunately, the Yang family will not issue a warrant for our arrest. But we have two wounded, Wang Fuge said. We can complete the assigned workload. Yan Liwen frowned and walked to the company commander of the reinforced company and said politely, Sir, do you know Yang Xiaojin? The company commander of the reinforced company said unhappily, Don't try to be lazy by making up some messy relationships. I don't know the person you are talking about. Get to work quickly, and those friends of yours lying on the ground, don't be lazy. Yan Liwen's eyes turned cold for a moment, but he did not argue with the other party. Instead, he suddenly said, Can I help them complete their workload? The company commander said, Sure, of course, as long as you can complete it. Chapter 295 Li Yuan has grown up. Yan Liwen stood quietly. They now had 6 wounded soldiers. If he had to complete all the tasks for the 6 wounded soldiers, it would be a very scary workload. When the reinforced company assigned tasks to each person, they would definitely set a task that each person could complete with all their strength. That means that it is already very difficult to complete one's own task, so how can one complete it for others? At this time, Wang Fuge and Li Qingxiang walked up to him and said, Don't worry, we are with you, let's get through this difficult time together. 3 uninjured male students also stood up, there are us. Even the female students raised their hands, we can share some of the burden, right? The injured Wang Yuqi also struggled to stand up, my injury is almost healed, I can also go to work. Yan Liwen smiled, sit down, don't end up disabled. There is no need to make it seem so heroic, just do some work. It must be said that Yan Liwen still felt a little warm. The people around him had experienced the test of time. They were all teammates who shared hardships and had a foundation of mutual trust. Looking at the other refugees around, none of them even had anyone to help each other. In the past, Yan Liwen and Ren Xiaosu were alone, just the two of them, but now, at a certain moment, Yan Liwen suddenly felt a sense of unity. Sister Xiao took a handful of mud and smeared some mud on the faces of the female students and Zhang Wu and the others. In this wilderness, when Xiaosu is not around, we have to be careful that others will miss us. You are all fair-skinned and beautiful, and someone will definitely have ideas about you. Find a place where no one is around and change your clothes. Wear loose clothes that don't show your figure. The female students were a little embarrassed. Wouldn't it be too ugly to have mud on their faces? But the female students who could endure this time were not fools. They let Sister Xiao smear them. After the smearing was done, everyone looked at each other and laughed happily. They were all equally ugly. Sister Xiao continued, remember to put a stone in your pocket. If someone really has bad intentions, hit him on the head with a stone. Remember to hide him 1 inch behind his eyebrows. If you hide him hard, you might kill him. Xiaosu taught me that. This is the survival philosophy that Sister Xiao learned from Ren Xiaosu. Keep a low profile and hide first. If you can't hide, kill people. Building a refugee camp is not a small project. During the process, compacting the ground, digging the ground, cutting wood and building houses, etc., each of which requires a lot of manpower. If a well-trained army came to build a camp, it might be completed in a few days. But the reinforced company clearly wanted to be a supervisor and had no intention of getting started. Even when they found someone slacking off, they would mercilessly hit the other person with the butt of their gun. An old man was hit on the waist by a soldier and never stood up again. There were also residents of the 108th fortress who wanted to protest, but they were beaten to the ground by the soldiers as soon as they said the protest. The refugees all went to work numbly. They suddenly realized that when the war came, their fate would also change. In that war, no one could stay out. In fact, Yang's decision to build a refugee camp also had a profound meaning, to let the refugees exhaust all their energy in the process of building the camp, so that they would have no time to cause trouble. This is usually their way of dealing with veterans. When a group of veterans are about to retire, in order to prevent the veterans from causing trouble, the officers will take the veterans to plant trees, digging countless tree pits and then burying them. The veterans were exhausted every day, and no one cared about causing trouble. Yan Liwen and his men were assigned to carry the cut trees. The task for the day was that each person carried 10 pieces of wood back every day. 2 people carried 1 piece, and 1 piece was as thick as a thigh. The tree was extremely heavy, especially Yan Liwen was a little shorter. When the tree leaned towards him, he felt as if more than half of the weight of the entire tree was on him. At first, everyone thought that carrying 10 pieces a day didn't seem to be a big problem, but when they actually did it, they found that the wood was heavier than they had imagined. Fortunately, Yan Liwen had nanorobots. He gathered the nanorobots on his shoulders, arms, and legs, which made it much easier. But he not only had to carry 10, but also had to complete the tasks of the wounded like Ren Xiaosu. Slowly, the nanorobot's energy began to fail to keep up, his shoulders were rubbed sore, and blisters appeared on his hands. Others could take a break after carrying 1, but Yan Liwen and his team could not. The Yang's troops had a registered list, and everyone had to register after carrying 1, so as not to be punished and not to get wet. Moreover, these consortium troops did not care about whether you were male or female, old or young, and arranged the same heavy tasks for everyone. If you failed to complete them, you would be beaten. Yan Liwen once told Ren Xiaosu that he hated the barrier, hated the consortium, and hated the people of the barrier. He even told Ren Xiaosu that if Yang Xiaojin did not come to them, then they would not go to the 88th barrier. When Yang Xiaojin came to the 108th barrier before, Yan Liwen was quite happy in his heart. He always felt that Yang Xiaojin was different from other people in the barrier. Moreover, Yan Liwen also hoped that the Yang's consortium where Yang Xiaojin was could be different and would not treat human life as worthless. But the fact proves that the financial groups are generally shady, and there is not much difference in essence. The only difference is Yang Xiaojin. In the afternoon, Xiao and the others had already finished the workload exhausted, but Yan Liwen and Wang Fuge and the others had to continue. Poor Wang Fuge is already old, and after working for a day, his life is almost half gone. Xiao and the others took a short break, and stood up to help Yan Liwen and the others share the pressure, but the girl's physical strength is limited, and Yan Liwen persuaded them all to go back. In the evening, when Xiao waited for Yan Liwen to come back again, she said anxiously, "Liwen, take a break. Your face is a little strange." Yan Liwen's face was pale and his lips were a little purple. At this time, Yan Liwen unloaded the wood, and Xiao pulled open his clothes at the shoulder, and saw that it was already a bloody mess. Sister Xiao whispered distressedly, "Why don't you use the nanorobots?" "No energy," Yan Liwen sighed. He also wanted to use it, but the problem was that the workload was too heavy. Others could only move 10 pieces of wood, but he and Wang Fuge and others had to move more than 20 pieces a day. "You go back and rest," Sister Xiao said, "there are still a few more pieces left. I'll go and carry them." Yan Liwen held Sister Xiao's arm and smiled, "It's okay, I can still hold on. My little injury is nothing compared to my brother's injury." Chapter 296 Yan Liwen's Curse Ability. Today, Yan Liwen suddenly realized that the pain in his body could really suppress the pain in his heart. So he was thinking, Ren Xiaosu needed to use the pain in his bones to suppress the sadness in his heart, so how much pain must Ren Xiaosu feel? There were refugees who had finished their work and were watching the joke. Before, these refugees thought that Yan Liwen and his team were very fierce, but what about now? Facing Yang's troops, everyone still had to work, and Yan Liwen and his team had to do more work because there were wounded soldiers. Yan Liwen looked at a middle-aged man who was gloating over someone else's misfortune. He said to Sister Xiao, "I really wish I had my brother's ability to kill these people." Sister Xiao wiped the sweat off his face and said with a smile, "When I used to hate someone, I would curse him to death in my heart. I would even arrange several ways for him to die, such as falling to death while walking or being bitten to death by wolves. Just thinking about it makes me feel better. You can try it." Yan Liwen smiled with difficulty. Okay, I'll try it. As a result, at this moment, the middle-aged man stood up and wanted to go to the bathroom, but before he took 2 steps, he suddenly stepped on a piece of snow that had been stepped on firmly and fell forward. The middle-aged man had lost his balance and his arms were waving weakly in the air. If he fell like this, nothing would happen, but he suddenly found that there was a small stone in front of him. When he fell, he happened to fall on a small protruding stone and his head was bleeding. Yan Liwen was stunned for a long time. It's not that he had never cursed someone before, but the curse was not so specific. This time, he suddenly cursed the middle-aged man who had just loaded over something else to slit and hide a rock, just as Sister Xiaoyu said. As a result, the middle-aged man really slipped and hid a rock. However, Yan Liwen did not curse him to death directly. After a while, the middle-aged man slowly got up and cursed, "Fuck, how did you slip?" Yan Liwen continued to carry wood without saying a word, and Sister Xiaoyu went back to take care of Ren Xiaosu. They both seemed to have guessed where the problem was. Sister Xiaoyu knew that Yan Liwen might also be a superhuman, but Yan Liwen and Ren Xiaosu never said anything, and she never asked. But every time Ren Xiaosu left for a long time, Yan Liwen would have a high fever, which made Sister Xiaoyu feel that it was a bit too coincidental. And now, the fall of the middle-aged man confirmed some of Sister Xiaoyu's thoughts. But what she didn't know was that even Yan Liwen himself was surprised. How could there be such a coincidence? No, this is not a coincidence. It turns out that his ability is not only to make a wish to let Ren Xiaosu get a lucky bonus, he can also use specific curses to kill people. This ability itself is a two-sided use, but he has never cursed anyone in a very specific way before, so he didn't discover it. And now, he suddenly realized that his extraordinary ability seems to have another use. But at this time, Yan Liwen suddenly stepped on a piece of compacted snow, and suddenly lost his balance and fell forward. In an instant, Yan Liwen realized that something was wrong. He used the nanorobbit that had just been charged in his body. His toes suddenly exerted force to change his direction and fell into the snow beside him. Yan Liwen was a little confused. He suddenly found that even cursing people would have backlash. If he didn't have the nanorobbit given to him by Ren Xiaosu, he would probably end up with a bloody head now. This ability is too weird. Even cursing people will suffer the same backlash. Hey, but Yan Liwen looked at the place where he should have fallen, and found that there was no stone there. The moment he fell, he thought he would have the same fate as the middle-aged man, but now it seems that the backlash is not exactly the same, but a reduced curse. The difference is that there was a stone in front of the middle-aged man when he fell, but there was no stone in front of him, so the risk factor was greatly reduced. Although cursing people also has backlash, the result seems to be acceptable, and Ren Xiaosu has made up for his shortcomings. His ability to bear risks is much stronger than that of ordinary people. It's like he cursed a person to be hit by a stray bullet from the southwest and the third rib of his chest was broken. Under the premise of preparation, he can use nanorobbits in advance to block the bullet. Of course, killing people in this way must be very troublesome, but it is better in concealment. When someone dies unexpectedly, who would have thought that he did it? Who would believe that even curses can kill people now? Yan Liwen does not have a super strong physique like other extraordinary people, and this is like a shackle that the world has put on his power, so that he cannot abuse it recklessly. But the nanorobbits prepared by Ren Xiaosu for him are like changing fate against the will of heaven. At this moment, Yan Liwen suddenly felt that his ability might have more uses, but he just hadn't developed it yet. In the evening, Yan Liwen tiredly returned to Ren Xiaosu, who had woken up again. "Are you tired?" Yan Liwen smiled, "No." Ren Xiaosu looked at the blood on Yan Liwen's shoulders and whispered, "I have 3 wireless charging equipment prepared by Li for nano-warriors. I don't know how long they can be used. It's too conspicuous to carry them on your back. From tomorrow, when your nano-robot runs out of energy, come back and take a turn. Recharge it here and then go out. It should be able to last for a few days." This was picked up by Ren Xiaosu at the 313 position. At that time, the tent where Lin Qi and the others were was blown down by artillery fire, and only these 3 were left. Ren Xiaosu raised his hand with difficulty and handed Sister Xiaoyu 2 bottles of black medicine. "Apply it to everyone's injured places, and the injuries will heal soon." Originally, everyone was sitting by the campfire, gasping for air. The wounds on their shoulders and hands hurt when touched, but they didn't know what to do. And now that Ren Xiaosu had just woken up, he had solved their biggest problem. Everyone hoped that Ren Xiaosu would get better soon, as it would be too hard for the team to endure without him. Yan Luiyun whispered to Ren Xiaosu, "Brother, I found a new ability, cursing. Wishing and cursing are like black and white. One is to bless people, the other is to curse people for disasters, but all of them are concentrated on Yan Luiyun." Ren Xiaosu frowned and said, "Tell me about your discovery in detail." The curse must be described more specifically in the mind. For example, certain factors lead to a certain result, and it must be logical. Yan Luiyun said, "The logic must be very clear." Ren Xiaosu pondered, "Then you try it. Curse me to cough a few times after choking on potatoes later." Yan Luiyun was stunned for a moment, "But we don't have potatoes." Ren Xiaosu said, "You try it." Yan Luiyun closed his eyes and cursed Ren Xiaosu, but at this moment he suddenly heard someone outside shouting, "Someone dug up a lot of potatoes." They seemed to have found a potato field. Yan Luiyun was shocked when he looked at Ren Xiaosu. "Is there such a thing? Why are you standing there? Go dig potatoes." Ren Xiaosu urged. Chapter 297 Spiritual Will. At night, all the refugees gathered around the campfire waiting for roasted potatoes. The aroma of roasted potatoes kept wafting out from the flames. The Yang family troops looked at this scene and were surprised. This group of people are really lucky. How did they find a potato field? Only Yan Luiyun and Ren Xiaosu knew that this might be the result of Yan Luiyun's luck and the curse ability. As for the specific principle, they didn't know. Other people's abilities are very concrete, such as Ren Xiaosu can see his own palace, and even take out seeds, black medicine, black knives, and playing cards from it. Su Xianchu is also very concrete, and can summon a shadow. Even Luo Zinayu's ability can open a visible shadow door. Only Yan Luiyun's ability is invisible and intangible. If it hadn't been fulfilled many times, they wouldn't even be able to detect what Yan Luiyun's ability is. Moreover, the ability cannot be used on himself, which is extremely strange. So this ability can only be excavated bit by bit, and it's even difficult to find the direction of excavation. Now, Ren Xiaosu used his reverse curse ability to find a potato field for them, solving the problem of food. In the past 2 days, even Xiao and the others had to eat as little as possible, because their food would not last long, so they had to save money. As a result, as soon as Ren Xiaosu woke up, everyone had something to eat, and a lot of it. Yan Luiyun fed Ren Xiaosu potatoes and said, "Brother, you'd better get better soon. We were all in a mess when you were not around." Ren Xiaosu observed the healing of his bone joints, thought for a while and said, "It will take another 20 to 30 days to work. It takes at least 90 days for an ordinary person's bones to grow back, and Ren Xiaosu's physical fitness seems to be 3 times that of an ordinary person, so his healing ability is also 3 times that of an ordinary person." Yan Luiyun breathed a sigh of relief. They only need to endure in this refugee camp for more than 20 days, and then they can leave. At this time, Yan Luiyun said, "Brother, the Yang Consortium seems to be no different from other consortiums. Their soldiers also regard human life as worthless. I think their fortress residents may not be much better than the residents of the Li clan. There are good and bad people everywhere." Ren Xiaosu sighed, "Look at these refugees. There are still many people who have no hostility towards us, but just honestly accept it." "But I just don't like the fortress," Yan Luiyun muttered. "In fact, it's not the people in the fortress that you don't like," Ren Xiaosu said calmly. "What you don't like is the rules in the fortress. The consortium puts everyone in that cage and then uses their rules to constrain everyone. You yearn for freedom, so of course you don't like this rule." Yan Luiyun whispered. "Oh." Ren Xiaosu smiled and said, "I don't like it either." Yan Luiyun's eyes lit up. "Then when you are healed, won't we go to the Yang's fortress?" Now the road to the north has been opened by the Yang clan, but they don't have a suitable identity to go north. Can they tell the Yang's army that we have a spy chief from the Qing clan here and want to go to your Yang clan to take a look? This doesn't make sense." Ren Xiaosu was silent for a moment. "Wait a little longer, wait until my injury is healed." At this time, he took a bite of potato, and suddenly a cold wind blew. The cold air poured into Ren Xiaosu's mouth and choked him. A piece of potato choked in his throat for a long time before he swallowed it. Ren Xiaosu was happy. "This is your curse ability." Yan Luiyun bit off a piece of potato, and he also choked, but it was fine after drinking a mouthful of water. Whether it is making a wish or cursing, the backlash will be slightly lighter. This should be a special treatment for the ability owner, but this ability must be used with caution, because this backlash is uncontrollable. But no matter what, Ren Xiaosu was very happy, because the stronger his and Yan Liu's abilities are, the smoother their future will be. At night, Yan Liu has been experimenting with his abilities next to the campfire. From time to time, someone in the camp would exclaim or slip, and he himself suffered a lot of backlash. The curse was chosen to experiment on the people who asked him for food before, and the curse was something insignificant, so the backlash was nothing to be afraid of. Gradually, Yan Liu also began to get familiar with his new ability. He stood beside Ren Xiaosu and said, "Everyone has worked hard to complete the workload for you wounded today. I feel that now the other people in the team can be entrusted with some trust." Yet, Ren Xiaosu responded softly, as if he remembered something. Yan Liu suddenly felt that the pain in Ren Xiaosu's heart was still there, but Ren Xiaosu had hidden it deep in his heart. At this time, Ren Xiaosu called several other students and asked, "After a day of training, have you made any changes in your control of the nanorobots?" After hearing this, several students were stunned for a moment. They tried to use the nanorobots. Wang Yuqi said, "It seems to be a little faster, but if you don't feel it carefully and don't try it many times, you can't detect it at all." Ren Xiaosu smiled and said, "It's just 1 day's training. This requires changes over time." Hu Shuo had said before that in fact, many people in Li's regular army have a synchronization and coordination rate of more than 80, and ordinary people will be slightly lower. This made Ren Xiaosu realize that the synchronization rate may not be fixed from birth, otherwise how could a group of people have special characteristics? So what is the difference between regular troops and ordinary people? Regular troops have received systematic training, not only military training, but also physical training. Sometimes it is common for people to run to death during cross-country training. Although the military style of the Li family has not been good in the past 2 years, the training has never been neglected. The military style is not good because it has expanded too fast, and too many untrained Li children have entered the army, which has brought bad atmosphere. So Ren Xiaosu thinks, will the synchronization rate be related to physical training? Of course, it may also be related to willpower. For example, in training, many high-intensity training must be supported by strong willpower, otherwise it cannot be completed at all. So after training, the will of the regular army has become more and more firm, which ultimately determines that their synchronization rate is generally high. Whether it is physical fitness or mental willpower, Ren Xiaosu thinks that these students will be able to raise the synchronization rate if they suffer a lot, including Li Qingzhen, Wang Dalin, and Wang Fuyue. Ren Xiaosu suddenly remembered what Yang Xiaojun had said to him, "When disaster strikes, spiritual will is the first-order weapon for humans to face danger." Please give me some monthly votes. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 298 Home. It is a headache to control the nanorobots with delays. Sometimes, even though the brain and eyes are in place, the nanorobots still need a while to react. It's like the hands are out of control, making Wang Yuqi and the others feel like retards. And if they can control the nanorobots more easily, maybe they can help the team a lot now, but the reality is that they can't do anything. So when Ren Xiaosu told them that exercise can increase the synchronization and coordination rate, the few students who were not injured even started to work actively, and the injured ones were also thinking of ways to exercise, such as those with leg injuries to train upper limb strength, and those with arm injuries to train abdominal strength. If people want to succeed, there are 10,000 ways. Originally, Yan Liu was under great pressure to work. Even with the help of Wang Fuyue and Li Qingzhen, the others were ordinary people, and there was a limit to sharing the burden. Now, after listening to Ren Xiaosu's words, everyone is trying to break through their own limits in hopes that they can provide some help to the team in the future. Their team has also experienced many storms. After the big waves, all that is left is gold. Everyone knows how difficult it is to live in this wasteland. But to outsiders, they were just full of energy. Ren Xiaosu had been waiting for an opportunity to leave. The first opportunity was when he hoped the wolves would come. But after several days, the refugee camp was almost built, but the wolves didn't come. At this time, Ren Xiaosu suddenly remembered that the wolves might have reached the day of collective childbirth. When they were at the outpost, many female wolves were pregnant. The pregnancy period of wolves is 63 days, so it's going to be soon. Therefore, for the entire wolf pack, the most important thing they should do is to hide, wait for the tribe to grow, and then raise all the cubs to become the new main force of the wolf pack. At this time, the wolf pack cannot move freely. The Wolf King will even reserve food for them in advance to avoid accidents during hunting. It's a pity that if the wolf pack is here, the two reinforced companies of the Yang family are not enough. Then, they can only wait for Ren Xiaosu to recover. The fence near the refugee camp has been built, and it is 2 meters high. There are also wooden lookout towers around the camp, and there are even searchlights. The people of Yang's reinforced company patrolled around the camp, and there were people taking turns to guard near the construction site. They were all armed with live ammunition to prevent them from escaping. They also acted as supervisors, and they were responsible for instructing the refugees on how to build barracks with wooden boards. The reinforced company took turns to guard. Those who had nothing to do would go to their own tents to play cards, but those on duty would never be careless and would not give anyone a chance to escape. If Ren Xiaosu and his team wanted to leave, they would first consider how to break through the blockade of the two reinforced companies. During this period, Wang Fuge took advantage of the night rest time to get close to the reinforced company and give them gifts. There were many gifts, such as watches and jewelry, which matched his image as a refugee. When the reinforced company was playing cards and chatting, he was serving tea and water on the side. However, even with such sincerity, the soldiers of the reinforced company still ordered him around and even shouted insults at him. Old Wang was not angry and still greeted them with a smile. When it was time for dinner, the soldiers of the Yang family did not even go to get food, and asked Wang Fuge to run errands. After dinner, Wang Fuge had to wash the dishes for them, which was so humble that he was in the dust. At night, when the soldiers of the reinforced company were playing cards, Wang Fuge brought a few cups of hot water to them. As a result, a soldier did not realize that the water was very hot, and directly brought it to his mouth, burning his lips. He was furious and kicked Wang Fuge to the ground on the spot. "Didn't you remind me that the water was too hot?" Wang Fuge let a few cups of boiling water spill on himself. He quickly got up and smiled. My fault, I will go get you some warmer water." Gradually, Wang Fuge suddenly became the spokesperson of the reinforced company among the refugees. Whenever the reinforced company explained anything about the refugee camp, he would ask him to run errands. When the first refugee barracks was built, Wang Fuge arranged for Ren Xiaosu and others to live in it first. The soldiers of the reinforced company saw it but did not say anything. This was the result that Wang Fuge had fought for. Although the house was built crookedly, it was not easy to have a place to shelter from the wind in the winter. There were so many wounded here that they had to find a way to move in. After the soldiers of the reinforced company left, some refugees cursed outside the barracks. "Is it good to be a grandson of the Yang family? Why do you have the right to move into the house first? This house was built by all of us." However, at this moment, Yan Liwen in the house suddenly rushed out. He kicked the person who was talking and kicked him into shrimp. He could only hold his stomach and wail on the ground. Yan Liwen, who had no orbits, was not something that ordinary people could resist. Yan Liwen held a dagger in his hand and looked around coldly, as if he was ready to kill at any time. Sister Xiaoi stood at the door of the barracks and pointed at a group of people and cursed, "If I hear anyone talking about Lao Wen behind his back again, don't blame us for being rude. Everyone will die." It was not until this time that the refugees remembered that this group of people killed without blinking an eye. At night, when they were resting, Ren Xiaosu called Wang Fuge and said, "Old Wang, you don't have to do this. It's okay for us to sleep in the wild. You don't have to sacrifice yourself like this." Ren Xiaosu had told Wang Fuge about this several times in the past few days, but no one could stop him. Wang Fuge agreed verbally at night, but during the day he still went to Yang's house to pretend to be a grandson and served tea and water. Ren Xiaosu clearly felt that Wang Fuge was also in pain, but Wang Fuge never said anything. At this time, Wang Fuge laughed happily and said, "It's okay, I'm good at this." Ren Xiaosu sighed, "It's not a question of being good or not. Although we are going through difficulties together, no one needs to sacrifice their dignity." Wang Fuge said calmly, In order to escape, you are all injured like this. When we were escaping, even the students were willing to stand up and take a grenade to fight with the experimental subject, but I cherish my life and I have to take care of Dylan so I can't die. So what can I do? I am the only one in this team who is suitable for doing this kind of thing, so Xiaosu, you don't have to feel bad, this is what I should do. What you can do for the team, I can't do. So let me do what you can't do. The room was silent, and a collective concept suddenly emerged in everyone's heart. Everyone suddenly felt that this was a home. Chapter 299 Special Uses of Curses. The work had to continue. Yan Liwen and others who had carried wood all day returned to the house exhausted. Everyone was exhausted. After several students who went to work came back, the first thing they did was to check the accuracy of their control of the nanorobots. It must be said that exercise can indeed improve the synchronization and coordination rate. It may not be obvious in 1 or 2 days, but after a week, the difference is more obvious. And in just 1 week, their bodies have become much stronger. Yan Liwen lay in the house and said, "Brother, although exercise can improve the synchronization and coordination rate, the problem is that the workload is too heavy. It would not be good if you are exhausted for a long time. You should think of a way. The potatoes in the camp were eaten up yesterday. The food provided by Yang's family every day is only enough to make very thin porridge. If the food is not enough, it will be dangerous. The food supply in the refugee camp is provided by Yang's family, but how kind can Yang's family be? It is good to distribute some rice every day for everyone to cook porridge by themselves." Fortunately, a potato field was found, otherwise most of the refugees would starve to death. But now, the potato field has been dug up completely. You have to know that there are thousands of people in this refugee camp. It only takes 2 days to eat up all the potato fields. Many refugees have been starving since yesterday. Ren Xiaosu thought for a while and said, "Tomorrow when we get to the construction site, you curse Li Qingxiang to be hit by squirrel shit." Yan Liwen was stunned for a moment. "Brother, what do you mean?" "Then you follow the squirrel and dig out its nest. It should be enough for us to eat for a while." Ren Xiaosu patiently instructed Yan Liwen on the specific operation process. "Remember, your curse will definitely backfire, so these are 2 squirrels, you can dig out 2 squirrel nests." Yan Liwen went to the construction site doubtfully the next day, but as expected, after 2 hours, a squirrel's shit fell on Li Qingxiang's head. Another squirrel's shit fell towards Yan Liwen, but Yan Liwen dodged it. Li Qingxiang cursed at the tree trunk in the air, and Yan Liwen urged the nanorobot to chase after it. After finding 2 squirrel nests, the next few days won't be too difficult. You know, squirrels store a lot of food for the winter. Nowadays, plants and animals in the wilderness are evolving. The gifts of nature are far beyond human imagination. Sometimes, if you're lucky, a peanut can grow to the size of 2 fingers of an adult. Yan Liwen wanted to catch the squirrel together, but unfortunately he had no experience and the squirrel ran away. He returned to the construction site with a large bag of dried fruits wrapped in his coat, and a woman immediately came over. "Little handsome boy, can you give me some food? Let me eat something, you can do whatever you want." As she spoke, she even wanted to lean towards Yan Liwen, but Yan Liwen dodged her. Yan Liwen asked coldly, "You can do anything?" The woman smiled, "Of course." "Okay," Yan Liwen said, "Go, carry the wood for us, carry it to the camp and register Wang Yuqi's name. After registration, come to me to get peanuts." "Woman." At this time, Yan Liwen said loudly, "Whoever helps us carry a piece of wood can get 5 big peanuts from me. The number of places is limited, first come first served." This is the solution that Ren Xiaosu thought of for them. Since the workload is too heavy, let others do it. At this time, the refugees are willing to do anything for a bite of food. In this wilderness, if there is food, you can do whatever you want. However, Ren Xiaosu specifically instructed that only the burden of each person in the team can be reduced, and no one can be lazy. In the future, everyone may need nanorobots. Now it is very important to improve the synchronization and coordination rate. Yan Liwen strictly implemented Ren Xiaosu's decision. Sister Xiao smiled and said, "You 2 brothers still have a way." Since Ren Xiaosu woke up, everyone's life has suddenly become better. This is probably the meaning of the existence of the head of the family. During the time when Ren Xiaosu was unconscious, Yan Liwen helped Ren Xiaosu to get through the most difficult days. Only under great pressure can one grow. Some people wanted to come to Yan Liwen to cheat for food, but Yan Liwen was so cunning that how could he be fooled by other people's words? Some people wanted to rob, but later the refugees who wanted to rob food found that although Yan Liwen looked younger, he was particularly vicious and no one could beat him. Anyone who wanted to rob basically lay on the ground for a long time and couldn't get up. These refugees should thank the Yang family troops. If it weren't for the Yang family troops watching them, they would probably have died. Every night Yan Liwen would go back to ask Ren Xiaosu how to curse his teammates the next day. Ren Xiaosu also patiently instructed, "You curse Li Qingzhang to trip over a radish leaf when walking. You curse Li Qingzhang to be hit on the head by a wild jujube on the tree when peeing. You curse Li Qingzhang." Anyway, since Ren Xiaosu woke up, everyone has never lacked food. Moreover, the problem of doing hard labor was solved. Hard labor has completely become a way to strengthen the body. It is no longer necessary to work hard to finish the work like before. However, the girls did less work, but the students insisted on not reducing their burden. They felt that as long as they squeezed themselves to a certain extent, their mental willpower would be able to grow. The refugee camp was built very quickly, and dozens of houses were built almost every day. It was during this process that the refugees began to form gangs and fight for houses. After all, who would live in dozens of houses? There were still many people who had no place to live. Ren Xiaosu and his team started the fight by fighting for houses. After the first house was occupied, whoever was more ruthless and had the bigger fist could live in the next house first. The soldiers of the reinforced company watched from the side. When the two groups were about to fight, they even made bets with each other, betting on which side would get the house. For a while, these soldiers of the reinforced company seemed to have found new fun. After all, when the refugees started fighting among themselves, they had no intention of making trouble. The soldiers of the Yang family thought it was good. Yan Liwen said to Ren Xiaosu, "The refugees are now divided into several groups. One group is the refugees. They are ruthless, so they can gain a foothold quickly and other refugees are afraid of them. Another group is the officials in the former fortress. Many refugees think that if they hang out with them, if the Li family attacks again one day, they will have the merit of following the dragon. The last group is ordinary refugees, who are honest and stick together for warmth." Ren Xiaosu thought for a while and said, "Don't be polite to them, but don't bully them." Yan Liwen muttered softly, "They are all people from the fortress, why can't they be bullied?" Okay, I'll remember it. Chapter 300 The Power of Poker. Yan Liwen's curse skill was discovered by Ren Xiaosu and turned into special productivity. When Yan Liwen cursed other refugees, he subconsciously wanted to arrange some food. In this situation where no one knew much, Li Qingzhang suddenly became the lucky general in their team. Regarding Yan Liwen's ability, Ren Xiaosu decided to hide it from everyone, because this ability was too incredible, even he could not be exempted. Sometimes, this invisible and shadowless ability makes people more afraid. So Ren Xiaosu also told Yan Liwen to keep it secret, and this matter was only known to Yan Liwen, Ren Xiaosu, and sister Xiaoyu. So, Li Qingzhang was also wondering, is he really the lucky general in the legend? Otherwise, how could his bad luck be linked to food in the end? According to common sense, if an extraordinary person finds that he has the ability to curse, he must use it in a very offensive place. Even Yan Liwen thought so, this is the normal logic. However, he underestimated Ren Xiaosu's brain circuit. When he returned to the house after work in the evening, the leader of the refugees suddenly came to find Yan Liwen and said, "You are very good at finding food. Have you ever considered joining us?" Yan Liwen was not happy at the time. "You are good at finding food. His curse ability is obviously very terrible. Okay, how can it be turned into a wilderness survival ability?" The leader of the refugees choked. If it were other people in the barrier, they would definitely avoid Yan Liwen, but the refugees were different. They have been fighting bravely all their lives, so when they saw Yan Liwen, they felt like they saw their own kind, but they were not so scared. You know, the leader of the refugees used to be a famous ruthless person in the market town. The refugee leader smiled and said, "My name is Xiao Zhenpeng, you can call me Brother Xiao. In this world, we must stick together to survive. You have so many girls, and there are several wounded people. How long can you survive in this world? You can't just rely on you to support it, right?" At this time, in the eyes of outsiders, Ren Xiaosu's team seemed to be supported by Yan Liwen. because all the dirty and cruel things were solved by Yan Liuan. However, Yan Liuan suddenly sneered, "Brother Xiao? Are you worthy? There is only one person in the world who is worthy of being my brother." Xiao Junpeng said calmly, "You are talking about your disabled brother. He may have been very powerful in the past, but I heard from the doctor that he has several comminuted fractures on his body. Do you still expect him to stand up in the future? Even if he stands up, he will be a useless person who can't take care of himself. Listen to me, you can't act on impulse in this world, you will be dragged down by him." Suddenly, Xiao Junpeng stepped back 5 or 6 steps because he saw Yan Liuan pull out a dagger from his sleeve. Yan Liuan said calmly, "How can you be so ungrateful? You don't look like a good person. You just want to show off among the refugees. Do you really think you are a big shot?" The thing Yan Liuan couldn't stand the most in his life was people saying bad things about Ren Xiaosu. In his heart, he had basically sentenced Xiao Junpeng to death. Ren Xiaosu was in the room and could definitely hear what Xiao Junpeng said. How could Yan Liuan allow others to disgust Ren Xiaosu like this? The outside world now knew that Ren Xiaosu was Yan Liuan's brother. The doctor who treated Ren Xiaosu before was also a jerk, so everyone knew in their hearts that Ren Xiaosu was probably disabled. But only Ren Xiaosu and his friends knew who was the boss in the team. Would Ren Xiaosu be disabled? Definitely not. But suddenly, Ren Xiaosu in the room suddenly said, "Liuan, how can you talk to people like that? Apologize." Yan Liuan smiled at Xiao Junpeng and said, "I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said you don't look like a good person. You look pretty good." As soon as he finished speaking, he heard Ren Xiaosu in the room say, "I asked you to apologize, not to lie." "Oh," Yan Liuan replied, "you got it wrong." Xiao Junpeng sneered, "There are only a few of you. Do you really think we dare not touch you? You don't know what's good for you at such a young age. See you at the construction site tomorrow. When you die, let's see what your brother will do. And those girls around you will probably live a life worse than death. Although fighting is not allowed in this camp, killing is prohibited. If you kill someone, you will be beaten and your workload will be doubled. But no one cares about it on the construction site." Yan Liuan returned to the room, and Ren Xiaosu said, "Don't worry, I'll take care of it." Yan Liuan was stunned for a moment. He knew that the threatening words said by the other party had touched Ren Xiaosu's bottom line. In the past, Xiao Junpeng would have died miserably on the spot. But how would Ren Xiaosu solve it? Ren Xiaosu moved his hands and feet. Although it was less than 10 days, the bone joints had healed initially. Although he could not do strenuous exercise, he could barely walk on the ground with an orbit fixed. Ren Xiaosu said, "Wait for me to create some chaos, and then we will find a chance to leave here at night. Liuan, you should pay attention to the situation outside." Yan Liuan's eyes lit up, "Okay." In the middle of the night, Xiao Junpeng and others were plotting something. Several refugees sat in a circle playing landlord. The poker cards were awarded to them by the reinforcement company. They were so tattered that no one knew how long the reinforcement company had used them before they were eliminated. But for the refugees, it was good to have poker cards at this time. If you want to form gangs in the refugee camp, you must first have a good relationship with Yang's soldiers, otherwise you will gather to make trouble. A few days ago, it was Xiao Junpeng who caught 2 pheasants and sent them to the reinforcement company, and only then were they allowed to form a group. The poker cards were also awarded to them at that time, like a gift. Xiao Junpeng said, "Tomorrow when we get to the construction site, drag that guy to the woods and kill him while the soldiers aren't paying attention. Remember, cover his mouth and don't let him ask for help. Wang Fuga over there has a good relationship with the soldiers, so as to avoid any trouble. Wang Fuga is just a man who serves tea to the soldiers. What's there to be afraid of?" A man said carelessly, "A3. There were only 3 people who could sit at the table, and the other men could only watch and listen to them talking. The whole room was filled with the smell of stinky feet." A4, Xiao Junpeng drew a card and hid it on the table. Suddenly, a hand reached out from the side and threw 4-3s on the table. Xiao Junpeng cursed at the time, "I hit a 4, and you hit 4-3s. Do you know how to play cards, huh? And haven't you hit 3s? Where did these 4-3s come from? You're cheating. Hey, something's wrong. This card is not mine," said one of them. Xiao Junpeng looked around, who threw these 4-3s? However, at this moment, the 4-3s on the table were getting brighter and hotter. With a loud bang, The roof of the newly built wooden house was blown off, and all the people inside were like chickens in a stew pot. None of them escaped. Ren Xiaosu listened to the noise outside, and suddenly said to Wang Fuguan and others around him, "Get ready to go." Welcome to download a Kidian app to search for the first sequence to support the genuine version. On the one hand, it is a respect and support for original content, and on the other hand, it is to earn money for milk powder for my son. If you have the financial ability, you can support it. Thank you. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.